Welcome to the 2026 Calais Town Meeting. I appreciate you all coming out this morning. As Gus said, the first order of business is Article 1, to elect a moderator for the ensuing year. Do I have a nomination for moderator? I'd like to elect Gus Seelig. Jordan has nominated Gus Seelig. Do I have a second? Second. It's been seconded. Are there any other nominations this morning? All right. All in favor of closing nominations, please say aye. Aye. Sounds like the ayes have it. All in favor of electing Gus Seelig as your moderator, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. No. The ayes have it. I will now turn the meeting over to Gus, and the meeting has begun.
Okay, good morning and welcome to Town Meeting 2026. I'm going to start by going over the rules of Town Meeting. Many of you know them well. You've heard me talk about them too many times, but there may be somebody or a few people who are new or haven't been here for a while. I'm going to start with some introductions, so I'd like the Select Board to each introduce themselves. We'll start with the Chair, Jordan.
Jordan Keys, Select Board Chair.
Jamie Morby, Vice Chair.
Bill Davis, Select Board Member.
Christy Mahaly, Select Board Member.
Good morning, Barbara McAndrew, Select Board Member.
And why don't we have our Town Administrator?
Hi, everybody. Kari Bradley, Town Administrator.
Okay. So a few things about Town Meeting. You've met the people who you've elected to represent you, but today we are acting as a legislature. They are up here not because they have any more vote on what you decide today than anybody else, but they do have more information. They have proposed, among other things, a budget and a warning that is in the town report. The way Town Meeting works is that we ask people to move an article and then get it seconded, and then we're open for discussion. Articles can be amended. There can be amendments to an amendment. We won't go beyond that. It gets way too confusing, both for me and for everybody trying to follow beyond an amendment to an amendment. We work from the town report that you've all received. I want to thank Tegan for once again producing a great report. If you don't know what's going on, if you don't know what's going on in town or all the things that are going on in town, it is a great resource both in terms of the people you elect to various offices, to the work of the Conservation Commission, the Lakes and Streams Committee, the Planning Commission, and the fire departments, many others. One of the rules of town meeting is you've got to be a resident to speak. We generally break that rule when the fire department folks show up. And unless there's an objection right now, we will let people from out of town speak without having to vote on that, which is one of the rules they tell you when they train moderators. I'm asked, when can I raise issues? If there's an article, you want to speak to the library issue, wait for that article to come up. If you have a general question or a general statement, you can generally deal with that either under the reports article or under other business. And if it goes to an issue related to the budget, when the selectmen propose their budget, that's a good time to raise issues related to how the town operates. If you want to know what happened last year, you can read the minutes, pages 116 to 118. We are going to elect some people from the floor. The rest of it is Australian ballot, which is Article 20, and we are told not to have people do any electioneering about things that are on the Australian ballot. But everything else can be discussed. We ask that you address the moderator, that we don't make it personal at town meeting. And one of the things to do is to direct things at the moderator, not to the person you may be disagreeing with and having a debate with. We ask for civility, so you're not supposed to call anybody, and I'll use the gavel, a liar, a cheat. Any of those kinds of words are off limits. There are 3 ways to vote, and the classic way is by voice vote, but sometimes, and especially people who are loud and passionate, you can't tell the outcome from a voice vote. So anybody can request a division of the House, and if you hold up this thing, then we'll be able to count you, but you need to keep holding this up till we're done counting. The Board of Civil Authority and the town clerk will help with that counting. You can also request that an issue be taken up by paper ballot. And that's a fine thing to do. And just know that generally it takes us, once we decide we're going to go by paper ballot, which needs to be affirmed by 7 voters, it'll take us about 20 minutes. So if you're feeling like you really want to visit with your neighbors and you request to take paper ballot, you'll have time to do that before we get to it, before we get to the results of the vote. There's one article or one thing that requires a supermajority, and that's to end debate. So it takes 2/3 to end debate. You will sometimes, if you hear me say, "Are you ready for the question?" at least I'm assuming that people are repeating the arguments about an issue that we've already had a long discussion about. But that doesn't mean if I keep seeing hands come up, I'll keep calling people. And somebody can move to end debate, but again, you have to have 2/3 to do it, and you need to be recognized by the moderator before. You can't just shout it out. You need to be recognized. I'll call on you, and you can move to end or close the debate. Moderators make mistakes. I've made plenty. If you think a ruling is in error that I've made, you can challenge that, and a majority can overrule the moderator and change the way the meeting is going. If you're confused about what we're about to do, you can ask for point of order or point of information to get clarity. Generally, I will read the article when we are ready to vote. I probably will not read Article 8 and list every single number that is in here. I'll read the beginning and the total, but you can see what is in there. I'll generally try to call on people who I know want to move an article and have an interest in it, like the representative from the library, Jeff Dean, but I may not have all the notes about who will speak to various articles. A couple notes just on a personal level, which is to say this is democracy, and many of us might take that for granted, but it's a privilege, and it's something we all have to work at and keep doing. There's plenty of democratic spirit in this community. We all walk in here as friends and neighbors, and even if you have a big fight with somebody, I hope you'll walk out still recognizing their humanity, their friendship, their neighborliness, whether they serve on the school board, the fire department, the ambulance squad, they represent the library. Whatever the issue is, most people are here because they care about the town of Calais and they want a better community, even though we may not all agree about how to get there. One of the things over the last couple years that I've come back to as I see challenges to democracy is a speech that Robert Kennedy, the senior, gave in 1966 in the middle of apartheid, or the beginning of apartheid in South Africa. He went there not as a guest of the government, but as a guest of students. And it's known as the Ripples of Hope speech. And I'd encourage any of you to Google it and look it up. But what I think town meeting is about is a ripple of hope, that we can all figure out how to work together and come to some common conclusions even when we don't agree. So I'm pleased to be here. I'm planning, as you've seen a change in town government, to hand this gavel to somebody else next year. I think I've been doing this about 25 years. And so I hope somebody will be interested. I'm happy to tell you about it. The League of Cities and Towns puts on a great training for moderators. There's lots of materials. You can watch videos of moderators screwing up royally. There's lots of ways to get ready to be a town moderator. We are governed by Robert's Rules of Order as best I understand them and as I'll interpret them today. So with that, Article 2 is to discuss and accept the reports of the town that are in the town report. Somebody move to accept the reports? Okay, it's moved. Do we have a second? Moved and seconded. We're open for discussion about the town reports. You're not approving them, you're just accepting they're here. Anybody have a comment or a question or an issue with any of the town reports? Yes, sir. And, 1 second, we're going to get you a microphone. There's some of us who don't hear as well as we used to.
I make a motion we get along with the meeting.
Get along with the meeting.
Get along, let's get going.
Okay, would anybody like to second that motion? Okay, I'm not sure what it means to get along with the meeting.
Get going.
I'm going. Okay. All in favor of getting along with the meeting? Anybody opposed to getting along with the meeting? Okay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we're going to get along. Oh, I thought you said a goal. I thought I heard you say get along with the meeting. Are there any other questions or issues with regard to the town report? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the town reports, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Next, we're going to elect some officials from the floor. The first election is for the trustee of public funds. Can I have a nomination? Okay. Do we have a second? Any further nominations?
Could you repeat the name?
We couldn't hear the name.
Rod Buck. And that's a good reason to wait for the microphone to come to you. Because if we can't hear it up here, probably people behind you can't hear it. Any other nominations? Can I have a motion to close nominations and have the clerk cast one ballot for Rod Buck? Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? And the ayes have it, and you've elected Rod Buck in that position as trustee of public funds. Next is a cemetery commissioner. Do we have any nominations for cemetery commissioner? This is a 5-year term. Michael? Wait for the microphone to get to you.
Sorry, Gus, could you ask people to introduce themselves?
That's a great idea. Thank you, Craig. Please introduce yourself when you get the mic.
Yes, Michael Fullerton, currently chair of the Cemetery Commission. I don't think it's improper for me to nominate a member whose term is expiring to be reelected. So I nominate Laura Daly.
Okay, do we have a second? Second. Okay, Laura's been, her nomination's been moved and seconded. Any other nominations? Hearing none, can I have a motion to close nominations and to have the clerk cast one vote for Laura Daly? Second. Jordan's moved it. Jamie seconded it. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Laura's been elected. Article 4. Shall the voters approve the town and general fund expenditures of $1,883,054.27, of which it is estimated $1,529,709.27 will be raised by taxes, and $353,345 will be raised by non-tax revenue. Would somebody move that article? Jordan's moved it. Do we have a second? It's been seconded by Bill. Okay, we are open for discussion or amendments. Kari,
If I could, I have a brief presentation give you an overview of the budget.
please.
So, first slide, please. So before I talk about the budget, I just wanted to give you a little bit about the general financial health of the town. And if I were going to pick one number to focus on, it would be the general fund balance. We have two major funds, the general fund and the highway fund. The highway fund is always zeroed out each year, so the general fund is really a reflection of both funds. Fund balance is assets less liabilities. We're on a cash basis, so it's basically cash in the bank less what we owe as of that time. So I don't know if you can see these slides, but at the end of the last fiscal year, June 30th, 2025, these are audited results. We had $473,000 in general fund balance. That was an improvement over the previous year, $344,000. That's when we still were waiting on quite a bit of reimbursements from FEMA for flood recovery. And the previous year was $413,000. So we've improved over that as of the end of last fiscal year, which is a very positive trend. I just wanted to share that with you. To put it in context, that $473,000 is about 21% of this year's budget. Okay, it's also about a third of what we spent on flood recovery from the 2023 funds. So it's still a fairly modest amount if you look at it that way. Next slide, please. All right, so moving on to the budget. If you're not familiar, the Select Board starts the budgeting process in August. We take a look at capital needs, look at the grant schedule, and then the Select Board hears from basically all of the town officials and the various committees and commissions and boards. All those groups submit requests, put those together, and then that gets wrapped up in January. The proposed budget for this year, two major departments, General Government and Highway Department. General Government expenses $674,000, and that's actually a decrease from the prior year of 0.3%. I've got another slide where I'll get into some of the detail of this. Highway Department, $1.2 million. It's an increase of 8.2%. And again, I'll cover that. The total is $1.883 million, or a 5.4% increase. And when we add in all of the special warrant articles, the cemetery, emergency services, library, social services, it's a total of 5.8% increase. To put that in context, when this process started and the Select Board had received all of its initial requests, we were over a 12% increase. So they worked to reduce that by over $100,000 to get it where it is. Last year's increase that was approved was a 4.6% increase over the prior year. So next slide, please. So what's driving these increases in this budget? First item is employee medical insurance. People are familiar with medical insurance inflation and what that's been doing across the state. That's an increase of 15% over the current year. Highway capital expense, this is basically the purchase of vehicles, is an increase of $32,000 or 20%. Basically what's going on there is we operate 4 10-wheel dump trucks, and they're budgeted on a 7-year rotation. So in any given year, we're either paying for 2 or 3, and this will be a year in 2026 where we plan to be paying for a 3rd one. So this increase represents adding that additional vehicle into the fleet. And then road maintenance is the next category at $27,500, an increase of 11% over the current year. This is mostly materials. The big increases here is sand, and that's really a function of the nature of the storms that we had at the end of last winter. If you remember, in the beginning of this winter, a lot of small storms where they were applying sand on a regular basis, and we were really eating into that mountain of sand. If you've been to the town garage, it was really diminished at a certain point, so we're budgeting to rebuild that. Culverts would be the other big expense, and just have a lot of need in that category. They've gotten very expensive, and it's an important way to protect the investment we make in our roads. Vehicle maintenance is a place where we've seen just a lot of inflation. It's become very expensive to work on these vehicles. We're budgeting an additional $19,000 there. And the last item is local hazard mitigation planning expense. This is an increase of $11,000. That's the entire expense. The local hazard mitigation plan is something that needs to be renewed every 5 years in order to qualify for certain kinds of disaster relief funding. And normally, my understanding is most of this or all of the expense would be covered by grants provided by FEMA, which are not available this year. So talked about that. The recommendation of the Emergency Management Committee was to to go ahead and pay for that. That's what's included in this budget. Okay, next slide, please. There are a few items where we're seeing some savings that I wanted to highlight. The most significant one is on the assistant town clerk position. This is a sort of a bittersweet piece for us because we're sad to see Barbara Butler retiring after many years serving the town in just a very extraordinary way. But we're also very happy to welcome in Meadow McKenna, who, if you haven't met, hopefully you'll meet today or very soon, is filling that position. We did take a close look at what we felt we needed and reduce that position from a one full-time equivalent to half-time. And so that's between wages and benefits, that's saving about $34,000. We're also seeing a small savings in grant expense and in total town hall expenses. And again, the total increase to the general government and highway budget is an increase of $96,000 or 5.5%, 5.4%. Okay, next slide, please. This pie chart just shows how things break down. 52% of the budget, of this total budget, is highway department. That's been growing faster than the other pieces, so it's taking an increasing share of the total budget. General government, 29%. Emergency services, which is ambulance and fire, East Montpelier and Woodbury, it consumes about 14%. The library and all the social services appropriations, 3%, and the cemetery is 2% of the overall budget. And just wanted to provide a little bit of context. Next slide, please. I wanted to look at expense trends over time. So I went back to fiscal 2022, and then 5 years earlier than that, looking at old audits, and just to compare to where we are now. And just to see what's changing, what's been changing over time, what are the trends. Employee compensation has gone from 29% to 37%, so as a percentage of the overall budget, that's an 8% increase. That is, I think probably to be expected. It's a very tight labor market. We need to be competitive in the labor market, you have to have competitive wages and benefits. And then the next line item is medical insurance. So that's a portion of the employee compensation. But you see it's gone from 5% to 9%. So about half of the increase on employee compensation is just coming from medical insurance alone. Highway materials has actually decreased as a percentage of the budget. So the sand and the gravel and all the materials has gone from 14% down to 11%. Which I thought was interesting. Highway capital expense, so the purchase of vehicles, has gone up as a percentage of the budget from 10 to 14. But if we look at all capital expense, not just highway, but throughout town government, it's actually relatively flat. It's only gone from 10 to 11%. So we're in a period of time now where we're spending more on vehicles, less on other things like the town office and the town hall. And then the last item is emergency services, fire and ambulance has increased from 10% 10 years ago to 14% of the total budget. Next slide, please. And then one more thing that I wanted to put in context is if we look at all of the property taxes, the town portion is about 37%, education is about 63%, and this is the last fiscal year. So just to give you a sense of where all of the property tax dollars are going. Okay, and then I just have one more slide. Unfortunately, there is an error in the warning. The budget is accurate, but the error, there's an error in Article 4, so where it says the general fund total expenditures, it should actually read $1,883,254.27. It's off by $200. And then the portion that will be raised by taxes should read $1,529,909.27. That's also off by $200. I don't know how that happened. I can't explain it. It's unfortunate. I apologize. But I would recommend that this be amended to reflect the actual budget. All right.
Is that a motion? Sorry? Is that a motion to amend the budget?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? Barry
Second.
seconded it. Okay, we're up for discussion on the amendment. Any questions or discussion of the amendment? All those in favor of amending the budget by $200?
Article 4, not the budget.
What?
Sorry. We're amending Article 4, not the budget.
Article 4, which will now read, shall the voters approve the total highway and general fund expenditures of $1,883,254.27, of which it is estimated $1,529,909.27 will be raised by taxes and $353,345 will be raised by non-tax revenue. All those in favor of that amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and the article is amended. We're now open for discussion on the budget, on the main article. Barry. Microphone, and please introduce yourself.
Barry Bernstein from East Calais. Kari, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the general fund. That's a lot of money. They hold a large amount to hold in the general fund. You
The
said
fund balance.
The balance, I mean,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. The fund balance. So I'd like you to just explain a little bit why we have that much, because it's coming out of taxpayers when we keep that. I saw that you said in there that someone recommends, or the policy of the select board is 35%. And what's it invested in, because it is cash. So how do we deal with that? Thank you.
Okay.
Let me see if I have.
So Barry is correct. Select Board did adopt a general fund balance to set basically a policy about what is the appropriate amount that we're trying to hold in reserve. Basically, that's the operating reserve, is the general fund balance. It's our cushion. And we exceeded that last year, and at the end of last fiscal year. So the decision was made to invest that in other needs, other one-time needs, specifically the repaving project of half of County Road this past year. And so when we get to the end of this year, it will be below that. That was actually something that was raised at last year's town meeting, was not budgeted for, but people heard that concern, and we came up with a plan to address it.
Okay, so I just had just a couple follow-ups. How much was the pavement project? I know it was a lot of grant money, but we've been talking about County Road so you repaved a mile and a half, I think you said in the report?
Mile and a half with some patching on the worst
and
parts of the.
what was the cost of that?
Ooh. I'm going to misquote it.
It's in your report.
Well, I don't need the dollar to exactly, approximately.
It was approximately 80% covered by state
No, I
grant.
understand, but what was the total cost of $1.5 million or?
Oh, no.
$500,000, quarter? I mean,
Oh, no.
that's all I'm asking is just.
It was in the neighborhood of like $260,000, give or take. There was a fixed amount, like a cap that you could get from the state for grant funding, and we, in conversation with the contractor, decided to add some additional patchwork to that, and relative to the condition of the road and the health of the general fund balance, decided to dip into that to kind of cover the excess, in addition to covering the expense of having shoulder work done. So there was kind of a balancing act there of trying to utilize the fund balance to exceed the scope of what would have otherwise been the maximum use of state grant funds.
Oh, it's fine. I just wanted clarity. I didn't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
any idea.
Yep.
We had in the past, years ago, talked about there was a trend around the country of actually digging up pavement and going back to dirt, gravel, because of the cost, and also that the speed has increased on that. And then you have another issue of people coming down to the Maple Corners fairly fast. So there was just a general question. What do we do with well, I guess two things. Maybe this is a select board question. How did you arrive at the 35% of holding that kind of money into a fund balance? And then the second thing is, what do we do with the cash? Is it invested, and how much? it's too soon.
So the percentage was a bit of a discussion, one that was in the ballpark of what was recommended by peers and other groups like VLTC and folks who kind of help inform our decisions around those types of policies. And then after that, there's a discussion amongst the select board of what do we feel comfortable with, what do we think is responsible from a taxpayer standpoint, and what are we looking at for future funding and incomes. So unfortunately, from the national scale to the state scale, we're seeing pretty increased risks of funding reductions that the town would otherwise expect to get for offsetting the costs of maintaining our roads, doing repairs during major flooding events. I think we were pretty fortunate this year, but we take the last couple of years into context when looking at what that fund balance is. And I will say that there has been a fairly healthy debate amongst the select board over the last year about, the community has expressed an interest in seeing paving projects being prioritized because of the quality of the roads. And so how do we address some of that deferred maintenance that isn't currently being planned for through capital budgeting process. We're adding those kind of mechanisms now where we're taking a more structured approach to how we're saving for those big projects. But in the interim period, we've been working to dip into, or at least considering dipping into that fund balance to expedite the deferred maintenance projects. So we are trying to utilize it and make use of that, whether it's for capital purchases, unexpected repairs that maybe weren't budgeted for, or expediting the timeline on which we're making repairs.
Well, I'll just say in the voice of Ben Naylor, who many of us know, who is a resident of Calais for decades and always would raise this question. And I understand that. I'm glad I don't know if you crossed your fingers when you said no flood this year. I was just going to say thank you. I hope it helps. The issue is, of course, when you have that kind of fund balance, it's coming out of all of our pockets, and all of us are borrowing at a higher rate than the town can, so that if you have it, as you said, planned in the long term, and you're borrowing through municipal borrowing, you're borrowing a lot less money than we can. I do agree at this point, particularly with what's going on with the feds, it's probably a good thing to have, but I hope the select board president in the future keeps an eye on that, because why it feels comfortable, if you're starting to fund projects that you haven't planned for, then it's getting outside the process of the town approving them, so to speak. And just a lot, what do we do with the capital? Then I'll.
Yeah. So currently, all of our cash is in a savings accounts in Community National Bank or Community Bank, earning 1.0%. So one project for the coming year is to look at what are some alternative investments that will still be relatively liquid but get a better return than that.
Other questions, comments on Article 4? Over here, Craig.
I'm Craig Lyon. I live on Old West Church Road. I was also sitting here thinking about Ben Naylor, and he would have put it more stridently than Barry did. It's our money. Don't forget that. I understand the need for a fund balance. My brain just said slush fund. I don't mean that. But I know things come up that we can't plan for, but 35% is extreme. Barry brought up the point I was also going to make about where's the money being invested. 1%? Are you kidding? I know you can't put it in a CD because then you can't pull it out when you need it. I mean, you really need to hear us. It's too much. Relatedly, an issue about paving was something else I wanted to bring up in a moment. I see that you're planning to repave in East Calais. And my question about that, is it going to involve doing the underneath work that needs to happen? It's not just skim coating or, I mean, some of that pavement goes deep. There are problems. So how is it going to be done was my question.
Is there somebody on the board who wants to answer that question? Jamie, thank you. Or Carl?
Yeah, so we're in the process of seeking quotes for that now. I think we're going to look at all options. My guess is that we'll probably arrive at some kind of compromise where the very worst parts, they'll go deeper into Marshfield Road. But to completely redo Marshfield Road is beyond our capacity, I believe. We'll see how the quote's out. Repaving has become just incredibly expensive.
Okay, in the stands, Joe? Yeah, you, turning.
John Burrybant, former selectman. What I learned on the select board from our council at the time was that in the case of emergencies, select boards can, under the law, overspend the approved budget. So I don't understand, as has been said by others, why we need a 35% of budget fund balance. So given that, I'm going to make a motion to reduce that fund balance to 20%. And I'm looking for a second. 20% of the budget, that is.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that the article be amended to reduce the fund balance to 20%. Discussion. It's been seconded. We're open for discussion. Yes, Rachel?
Where is the fund balance reflected in the budget that we're voting on in this article?
It's not. Consider it like a balance sheet item as opposed to a
Okay.
income statement budget.
So then I would have a point of order that motion is out of order for this article
And explain the reason.
because it's not part of the budget that we are currently voting on in Article 4.
I believe you're correct. So, okay. Yep, you can.
I'd just like to add another comment. One of the reasons that that we wanted to adopt this policy was to give us an opportunity and a structure for having this type of conversation. And so, you know, I think what I would propose and encourage folks to do would be to allow the select board to host a conversation around how it would modify that policy relative to the input of the community and how it may consider drawing down that fund balance over the course of the next fiscal year. You know, I don't disagree with the points that are being made here. This was an effort to put structure around how we plan for what that amount is and how we use it. From here on, it's an opportunity for the community to direct the select board in how they would like to see those funds used and applied to offset the tax burden to the community. That's not necessarily a proposal. But
Yep, I've made a ruling.
The fund balance, the budget that's being proposed that we're voting on today reflects what's in that fund balance, does it not? I mean, if there was no fund balance, would the budget not be higher? So I want you to explain your ruling.
I believe that the fund balance is separate from the budget. Now, you could move to reduce the budget as a whole. That would be in order. You can't reducing, and would the select board then choose to use its fund balance to make that up? I suppose they could. But the fund balance is not what the warrant article is.
Okay, then I'm going to amend my motion then.
Well, it'd be a new motion,
It'd be a new motion.
a new amendment.
So I'd like the fund balance, the select board's budget as proposed to be reduced by the amount of dollars that would result in a fund balance of being 20% of budget rather than 35%.
And does anybody know what that amount is?
So this is a little more complex than I was hoping to do on the fly. First of all, when we say 20% or 35%, I think of what is the key question. And the way the policy is stated is it's of the general government plus special warrant articles, which is about half the budget. You know, doesn't include the highway. One thing I wanted to say is where these two concepts interact is in the last part of Article 4 that talks about the amount raised by non-tax revenue. You could maintain the expenditure budget while increasing the amount that came from non-tax revenue, assuming that it came out of fund balance. That would be a reasonable thing to do, but I would caution that anytime you're working with municipal budgets, if you use one-time monies for not one-time expenditures, you're going to pay for that in the following year because those ongoing expenditures are built into your budget. This happens all the time with school budgets. You want to match one-time monies, which a fund balance is essentially one time. You spend it, it's gone. You want to match one-time monies with one-time expenditures like a capital project or a repaving project or a purchase of a new vehicle.
Okay, got a hand up in the middle? Yes, sir. No, and then we'll go to you.
Is there a motion on the table?
Yes, there is. You've made a motion. I believe it was seconded. Did I not get a second? Do we have a second for John's motion? It's been moved and seconded. Okay, floor is yours now.
Ready for
You've got
Rick
the mic.
Kane, Martin Road. This is kind of a couple of questions for Toby and Jordan, and it's somewhat related to this. Given the chaos that we've got in FEMA these days and the funding streams for both disaster reimbursement and in mitigation, what are the liabilities? How is the town doing in terms of recovering promise funds for recent disasters, and then what liabilities are we facing that we can't necessarily plan for? I know that's, are we adequately covered to be able to handle that without reimbursement from that federal side?
So liabilities and risk. Liabilities, we have about 10% of our budget's going to debt, right? So between vehicles, the dam, and other the fire station that we're still paying for, we've got ongoing obligations that we have to cover, and then risk. I think one of the reasons the Select Board set the policy at a 35%, a little bit higher than our peers, is because Calais has over 70 miles of Class 2 and 3 roads, the roads that we're responsible for maintaining that are very vulnerable to the weather events we've been seeing recently. Like I said, in 2023, the price tag for repairing our roads was $1.5 million. As you point out, if we don't get reimbursement for that, we're going to need every dollar.
Yes,
So I'm just trying to understand what's going on here. So please forgive me if this is a stupid question, but what I'm wondering is your concern whether or not you trust our current select board members to allocate our money? And if it's a matter of trusting them with our money, I just want to be on the record. I'm Mary Alice Prophet in saying that I'm currently very happy with the professionalism of our town office, and I'm impressed by the transparency of the presentation. So if that's the concern, I would like to trust the select board members to be able to take care of our roads if there's a disaster. And I don't see any reason not to do that. But if I'm off base, maybe one of the select board members can correct me, Barbara or someone else, because I'm a little lost as to what's going on right now with this conversation. Thank you.
We have a hand in the middle. Yep. come to you next.
Hi, Jonathan Hertz. It's been said that if we had a smaller reserve fund, under the circumstances of an emergency, the Select Board does have the discretion to spend above budget legally, but of course, even if they are allowed to go over budget, where would that money come from if the money was not there in the bank? Surely that would still require borrowing, which would be more difficult to do very quickly in the case of an emergency. Could the town manager speak to that?
Yeah, so we would have two options. We'd have the fund balance to draw on, or borrowing. We have a line of credit with our bank, and that could be relatively quickly, but it's limited in its amount. So we would probably have to look at other sources as well, other types of borrowing, and obviously you're incurring expenses there, interest expense.
Okay, Nadine?
Nadine Martin, East Calais. My question, I think, somewhat relates to what John Brabant is asking about, but really I'm looking for an explanation of what all money is in that $353,345 of non-tax revenue, and how secure is that for the future with many grants, especially at the federal level, disappearing. I don't know if grants are in here or just what it is, but it seems to me that if that money is insecure, the fund balance becomes important.
Yeah. So the breakdown of other income is on page 65 in the town report. And it'll go through, you'll see current use, state aid and highways as the lion's share. I think that those are secure sources for the coming year. I am very worried, as other people are, about the state's transportation fund. That's a whole nother discussion we probably don't want to get into right now. But it is something for people to be aware of, that there's risk there long term.
Okay, this hand up over here in the middle.
Donna Smyers, Haggett Road and Adamant. I just want to sort of echo Mary Alice's comments, but after the flood, Calais' roads got fixed really fast compared to our neighboring towns. And I think it was because we had the funding mechanisms in place to do it and apply for the grants, and we got done so much better than our neighbors. Some of the East Montpelier ones went on forever. And I personally live with a balance in my checking account, so I don't have to worry about every check I write, because that's so stressful and ends up costing more when you make a mistake. And so I am arguing for keeping a relatively large 35% balance in the general fund, because I think it makes the whole operation work much more smoothly. And it's not like we're losing money. Yes, it's your money invested in the town, but if you have a rainy day fund, you have much less stress in your life and often end up getting off cheaper than if you get in trouble.
Barry, and then we'll go to Fletcher, and then we'll go to Doug. Barry's first. Yep.
So I just want to be clear. I raised this point because I didn't understand what was going on there. I support the chair's comments about reflection on this. It's not a matter of distrust when you raise an issue about how much money we're keeping in a fund balance, what the interest is, what we can borrow money for versus you getting 1% interest. And I think all of us understand the uncertainty of the days these days. So I think for me, it's more of a question that I do think the discussion of the percentage, the alternatives, whether you should be using some of this to pay down on one term, reducing our debt, it's all where you get the best return. When you're getting the money in taxes from us, if I go to the bank, I'm borrowing at 6, 7, 8%. So that's the question Ben Naylor always asked. It's when you're building that fund balance, it's not that the town can't go and use a short-term line of credit, and I'm not against having money. I think this has been a good discussion. I will support not changing it at this point, but I would like to know that the Select Board openly, as I know you do, continues its discussion so we all know more about it. That's my position. I think it's not a good idea to think when people have a concern about this that it's a trust issue. It's from my perspective, it's a financial issue and how we use our money and where we use it. And I don't support reducing it this time, but I do think 35% may be too high. I don't know what that's going to be when you get your FEMA reimbursement if it comes through, because that's going to jump up quite a bit. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, Fletcher and then Doug.
Fletcher Dean, East Calais, Moscow Woods Road. It was just a year ago, a little over a year ago, when our new regime came in and started dismantling all the federal programs, and FEMA was one of them. And I remember Trump clearly saying, "I think states should take on their own repairs." So I'm seeing, as I'm hearing this is great conversation, good points. And I think that maybe we should just think of this as self-insuring, for something that happens, that we could maybe take care of ourselves. I keep looking back at Plainfield. What is it now, 2 years or so since they were devastated? And they're just really, these small towns can't fix this stuff by themselves. We heavily depend on the federal government to help us out. And the federal government has basically said, you're on your own. So I think it's probably a better idea to have some of this money in reserve to help us in a tight emergency situation.
Okay, Doug, and then Rose.
I'm disappointed with thinking that you're going to be able to, if we got to borrow money, go ahead and borrow it. We should have to, we're not running a checkbook like I would run a checkbook, but I try to keep money in ahead of time. So I could go borrow the money in the town, and if they can't go borrow money when they need it, we're in tough shape. We're in tough shape. So I want to tell you about, back to the highway department. You talked about that. We built we built the road up in Maple Corners, right? We could have saved money there. We could have done our work ourselves, but we hired Bellavance to do the work. Why did we hire somebody else to do it? We have the excavators, we have the trucks, we have the graders, we have everything, but we don't have the know-how. That's the bottom line right there. So that costs us money to hire Bellavance.
Okay. Rose gets the next question.
Mr. Moderator, I make a motion to call the question, please.
Okay, there's a motion to call the question, which is an amendment, which, John, make sure I get this stated correctly, that what you want to do is reduce the overall fund balance from 35% to 20% to use to pay our taxes this year. Is that the policy to allow a maximum fund balance of 20%? But you're basically trying to amend the budget down by the amount that would be 20%, which is going to be, rough estimate, somewhere in the neighborhood of $180,000, I think. Yes.
Hi, this is Mercedes Pignon from, Jack Hill Road. So Doug just asked a question, but it didn't get answered. So could we hear the answer? I'm interested in hearing the answer, and then we can continue.
Yeah.
Because you just jumped to the next question, but there was no answer.
Not every question gets necessarily an answer. What we got was a motion to end debate.
But that
on the
was
amendment-
after.
On the amendment. We can certainly get Doug an answer later, but a motion to end debate is not debatable. It's just clarifying for the voters what it is we're about to end debate on.
I understand, but the motion was made after his question, not before.
Not every question always gets an immediate answer. The question was
So-
off the topic of the amendment. There's now a motion to end debate, so I need to call that question. We will get back to Doug's question.
No. The question, this is a point of order. The question that he asked is related to Article 4, which is the budget for highway. And he asked, why having all the equipment to work on that road and make all those improvements, the town hired Valabans to do the work instead of doing it ourselves and save money? And I would like to know an answer so we can vote on the article, because it is related to the article.
No, it's related to the article, not to the amendment. So we will get back to the question after we deal with whether we're ready to end debate on the amendment. And then we'll answer that question. All those ready to end debate, please say aye. Aye. Those who want to continue debate, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we're now on the amendment. All those in favor of John's amendment, which will decrease the amount we need to raise for taxes by approximately, and I'm just doing this rough numbers off the top of my head, $180,000, please say aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it. The amendment is defeated. And now, would somebody on the select board like to answer Doug's question?
I think Mr. Lilly brings up, a fair point about our capacity to self-perform some of this for a savings. I also think that it's fair to look at our capacity to perform that work ourselves. That was a fairly unique situation in that we were facing a project that had been funded in large part by a state grant that we had a certain amount of time to complete. And because of flooding events over 2 years, we were faced with a situation where we needed to have that project completed. It was a technical project. It's not rocket science by any stretch of the imagination, but it was technical nonetheless, and there was still a significant amount of work to be done, just regular grading work that needed to be done on our roads through the course of the summer. So there was some discussion on the select board about self-performing that work, and part of that was watching, observing, seeing how that type of project gets constructed. That is a reconstruction technique that may be applied to other segments of road that suffer similar issues. And at that time, we may self-perform those projects. But the primary driver behind deciding to bid that work out were the time frame in which we had to have it completed so that we could maintain our funding, our grant funding for it, and the scope of work that we still had to do through the rest of the construction season. Okay. Is that a fair representation of that? I don't want to
I have a follow-up question. Thank you so much. So yes, I understand how the grants work. You have a start date and end date, and then it has to be performance-based. So you have to perform that work in order to get reimbursed for the money. Now, why has the town seek an extension for the grant? Because given the circumstances, you could request an extension, a no-cost extension, and explaining everything, all the delays in funding, and at least get it for another year, usually.
Yeah, we had already exhausted those extensions, so that does come up whenever we have the opportunity. There was another project where we had sought an extension to grant funding and were denied, so we were just looking at the outside risk that whether or not we would be able to let it expire and get the funding again, or just use it, which. based on its budget and the bids that we received, we were able to do the project with a contractor as opposed to self-performing.
Okay, Doug, and then we'll come up here.
I talked about this with a lot of people, and we got a mud hole right up here on Lightning Ridge Road that you could get killed in coming down through there. You could get killed. Anybody here seen that mud hole by the end of the, huh? Have you seen it? Okay, well, anyway, that, you get up there in Maple Corner, you're gonna get stuck there. You will get stuck. Down here, right up here, you're gonna get killed there if you come down through there 90 miles an hour, which they do. And I seen the brake lights come on, and that's what happens. And you know why that got happen up there? Because it's Maple Corner, and you ain't gonna like this, but everybody on that board, most everybody, is from Maple Corner. Everybody. That's the way it is. I'm sorry. That's the way it is. And we got to do something about that. We have to change that. They're talking about blacktopping up on east, out of the village, George Marshfield. You know who lives on the end of that road? One of the select board members. We don't need to blacktop that road. It's been like that for 100 years. We don't need to spend our money on that road. No, we don't. So we're spending money crazy around here.
Okay, we're going to come up here next. Wait for the microphone.
Jack Russell, I'd like to move the Article 4.
You're moving to end debate.
Yes, that's it.
We have a second? It's been moved and seconded that we end debate on Article 4. Are you ready for that? Well, that's not debatable. All those in favor of ending debate on Article 4, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we are ready for Article 4. Okay, so Article 4 says, shall the voters approve the total highway and general fund expenditures of $1,883,254.22, of which it is estimated that $1,529,909.27 will be raised by taxes and $353,345 will be raised by non-tax revenue. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you have passed Article 4. Going to take up. Yes.
Just a point of information. I live on Bliss Road, and I have a hard time getting off the hill, and I'm not on the select board. And I'm glad that bit of pavement is going down to East Calais Village because it's probably one of the few ways I can get up when it's icy. Just to clarify. Thank you.
Okay. I do want to say, I didn't say at the beginning, that we always get visits from our legislator. I expect he and Senator Perchlik are now here. Is Mark with you? So before we take up Article 5, we have Senator Perchlik with us. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. What a quick mic pass. Well, thanks for allowing me to speak. This is a nice, cozy group. So I'm Andrew Perchlik. I'm one of your 3 state senators. I'm on the Transportation Committee in the morning and then chair of the Appropriations Committee in the afternoon. Just wanted to give you a quick update, and then Mark, if you didn't have to park too far away, we'll come in here and give you the House perspective. But there's a lot of struggles that we're facing in the state. I won't take all the time to talk about healthcare and education and housing and all the things that we're working on. But we are working on all these things. We're halfway through. On transportation, we're struggling with funding. The feds, there's one area that the federal government has been consistent. It's been with transportation funding. On all the other funding, they're completely chaotic, and they're taking money away, and then they're giving it back, and then they're saying they're giving the money back, but then it doesn't come. So it's been very difficult from a budgeter perspective to figure out what we're doing. So we set a lot of money aside. We're kind of in agreement with the governor that a chunk of that will be used to buy down the property taxes as we work on education reform. But we want to hold it back until we really know what the full damage that the federal pullback is going to be. But it's like every day it changes. So that's a difficult thing we're working through. But we will have less federal money, and that'll mean less programs. And we're trying to figure out which programs we can backfill with state funds and not. But the other thing I want to talk about in transportation is the vehicle inspection program. I have a bill in to eliminate the safety inspection. We're one of only, I think, 8 or 9 states that have annual safety inspections. There's been no evidence that it really makes less crashes or the crashes are less severe for those states that have them. And so I propose to get rid of them because the one thing that I've heard the 8 years I've been in the Senate is problems with inspections. And we've tried to reform in the past, haven't really got that way, so I think we should just get rid of them. It seems like DMV and the Scott administration does not want to do that. So we're trying just to drastically change the inspection system. So if you have rust, if you just have like your high beam light won't go off, or a small crack in the back passenger window, you can still pass inspection. But you we'll get a notice saying you might want to fix that window. But it's not a safety issue if you have a little rust over your fender. So that, I think, will be a big benefit for the affordability of Vermonters if we can stop having these repairs to vehicles that really aren't necessary for safety. On school transformation, which I know is a big issue in this town and throughout the state, is there seems to be agreement with the governor and the majority of legislators that we got to do something. We got to do something about property taxes. We have to do some reform on the way we fund education. But other than that, there hasn't been a lot of agreement specifically on how the new districts will be formed. What I'm supporting is what the Senate Education Chair had kind of proposed of having an organic process to let the new districts form, so with some carrots and some sticks, and say like, okay, in the next 2 years, we're going to have a foundation formula. Here's the money you're going to get. Here's some of the requirements that we want to see in the schools, but let the new districts form organically from the bottom up instead of the top down, having Montpelier try to figure out every town where they should go, and allow the town people to vote. Say like, would you rather go to this district or that district? So when I was in Plainfield and Marshfield, I did a poll, like, would you rather move west towards U32 or east towards Caledonia and St. Jay and Danville? And I think that should be a decision that the town's going to have, and not have Montpelier trying to just force it down on some map, because that's going to be wrong. So that's the quick kind of big pictures, but Mark found a parking spot, so I'll pass it on to Mark.
Hi, everybody. So where we are is we're halfway through the session. That is not this Friday, obviously, but the next Friday we have to get all of our bills out and then they go to the Senate, and the Senate's bills come to us, which means I don't really have any idea what's going to happen, because I have all these great things I'm doing, but then they go over there, and who the hell knows what's going to happen. So anyway, just a couple of things really quickly. The federal government the collapse and the chaos of the federal government is unfortunately having an effect on us. I mean, something like a third of our budget is federal money, and it's contracting. And as I imagine you might have mentioned before I got my parking place, it's just chaotic. We're told, yes, you have money. No, you don't have money, et cetera. And I think it's potentially really dangerous for us. I mean, for example, Section 8 housing vouchers really help a lot of people in our state, and it's unclear what the future of those vouchers are. You know, our health system is on the verge of collapse, and we did pass a bill that allows for better negotiation of drug prices, and that saved $230 million, which sounds like a lot of money, but it isn't compared to the total cost of health care. But with the federal government pulling out, of helping people with their insurance, a lot of people are going to have to go without insurance. They're just not going to pay the money that it costs to have insurance. And that is going to put a terrible strain on our hospitals, which are already having a terrible time. So we'll just have to see how that goes. I'm head of the Housing Committee in the House, and I've been working on housing because it's kind of at the base of everything. We don't have enough housing, and the housing we have is too expensive. I've been working a lot on what we call manufactured housing. Think mobile homes, but they're not mobile, they're planted. The reason is they've gotten a lot better. They're the cheapest form of housing. It's practically the only housing that Vermonters, normal Vermonters anymore, particularly young people, can afford without subsidy. And we don't have a lot of money. In fact, we don't have any money this year for subsidy. So I'm doing everything I can to make housing less expensive, easier to permit, and easier to finance. So that's just the quick and dirty of what's going on in the legislature right now. I think affordability is at the key. I know Andy talked about education. For me, education finance is the game. How do we, we're caught in this trap where we spend more every year and our quality isn't what we want. So what do we do about it? And I think the legislature will do something. And I'm hoping the governor won't veto what we do. Lastly, I'll just say there are 3 bills in the House, and I think there are bills in the Senate too, that would increase the tax rate, the income tax rate, for the most wealthy Vermonters, people who really make a lot of money. And the rationale for that, I generally don't feel like there's a lot of room for more taxes in Vermont, but we're relatively a high tax state. But these individuals have received huge tax cuts at the federal level with the bill, which I will not name. Just huge tax cuts. And at the same time, the federal government is collapsing and telling the states, well, why don't you take care of it? And so it makes sense to me that we do recover some of that money for the state. And so I support those bills. So whether my support means anything, we'll see. Finally, just one more thing. Where's Barbara? Get up here, Barbara. So I have this little public service award, which is merely an inadequate piece of paper signed by the Secretary of State. The certificate is awarded to Barbara Butler in recognition. And then there's this big mistake. It says 8 years of service. Well, what that means, of course, is 8 years of employment for the town, not the 30 years or 40 years of service on every possible committee.
Okay, do
Thank
we
you, everybody.
have 1 or 2 questions for legislators while they're here? John, you'll get one of them.
Two questions. It deals with taxes, though. I don't know who or both you can answer it. Vermont historically has, and I don't know if it's in play anymore, but on unearned income, there was a cap on unearned income in Vermont some years ago. That was put in place by Governor Dean after Snelling removed it. So what's the state of that, and are you looking at that, removing that cap? And taxing that as income. That's number one, because income tax and that are different. Number two, and I know it's complicated, but a thumbnail would be great. What are the difficulties with moving the teachers' health care to the state level, i.e. general fund or some other such revenue source, like the state employees, and maybe even pooling all of our health care? Because really, by extension, teachers are state employees. They're funded. And that would be a much more progressive way to derive that revenue rather than on the property tax, which I know there's some adjustments for income, but it's still comparatively regressive. So those are my two questions. Thank you.
Oh, we got another mic. On the unearned income, I know the Senate Finance Committee, your other Senator Cummings is working on that. She talked about it as kind of like capital gains, but it's not just capital gains, that there is some movement, there is some kind of like ability to raise some more revenue from those that are these very large amounts of unearned income. So I know that's on the table. I don't have the details. I'm not on the committee, but I know it's something that they're looking at, as well as maybe having a higher tax bracket for like those are over 500,000 or something like that. I don't have a problem with moving the teachers over to the general fund or moving them with the state employees. I'm a state employee, and I know the healthcare system, the benefits are, I think, about equal. The governor really wanted us to move to the statewide teacher healthcare plan. He thought it was going to save a lot of money. It didn't turn out to really save a lot of money. It's a major pressure on the education fund. If we can do better with just merging with the state employees, then I would be supportive of that.
There are a lot of countries, and it's sort of what you're getting at, there are a lot of countries in the world that have what's called a wealth tax, which is what you're talking about. In other words, instead of just taxing income, they tax the total assets. It's a low, usually at 1% or 2% or something like that. And those, it works very well for them. The problem we have in Vermont is we depend on the federal government to collect data and to help us out. I mean, we don't mirror their tax rates exactly, but we do rely on their huge data collection. And since there is no wealth tax nationally, the states that are looking at it would have to sort of invent the wheel. And there was a very specific proposal for a wealth tax 2 years ago, and it's being studied, but that's as far as I know in terms of it. And on the other issue, I guess I'm really not qualified to comment because personally, I think education should be funded through the income tax, period, not through the property tax. My view is a minority view. There are problems with it because it's hard to figure out how to help renters who might get double taxed. And there's the income tax fluctuates more than the property tax. All of those issues could be resolved as far as I'm concerned. But I guess I stand with the public assets group on that, but that's not the prevailing view.
Okay, one more question or none? Hand over there. Yes, sir. Yep, you in the stands. Get a microphone.
In regards to the taxes for people with more income, a wealth tax, et cetera, I guess my question would be, why wouldn't they just leave the state? If we as a state don't have enough incentives to keep them here, regardless of how much we tax them, then it seems like I'm all for taxing wealthy people. But I think you have to tax them in a way that still incentivizes them. And if Vermont is not a state that has incentives like good business, a good business culture that incentivizes business, then they would just move to states that do have those incentives, which takes away our ability to make money, especially at a time where we're losing a lot of money from the federal government.
That is a really great question. And I'm not saying that just to flatter you. I've noticed as a baby boomer that everybody younger than me, every time you ask a question, they say, oh, that's a great question. People didn't used to say that. Anyway, it is a good question, and people who don't want to tax the wealthy always say that. There have been studies, quite a few studies done on exactly that issue. And it turns out that the very wealthy don't move. The reason they don't is that the reason they are where they are has to do with family, preference, dare I say climate. It's where they've established their roots, and they just don't care about that extra tax. I mean, as much as you have very high-profile people asserting they will leave, and then generally they don't. That's what the studies show so far.
Okay, we're going to go on to Article 5. Do you want to speak to Article 5? You have, all right, well, one last question, I guess. If we can get a microphone there.
Thank you. I think that if people get taxed a lot, if they're wealthy, they will move. They can rent, and then they won't pay as much taxes and enjoy the beauties of the state. And so then you're gonna get used to having that money or count on that money, and then you're just gonna drive them away, and you're not gonna have that money, and then the taxes, all those expenses will fall on the true residents that are not that wealthy, and the taxes will continue to skyrocket like they've been lately for the past, I can't remember, years. Sorry, that's just the truth. If they're wealthy, they can travel and go and back and forth wherever they want. They're not gonna say, I'm not gonna go visit my family once a month because I can't afford it, so.
There's some truth to that, but as Mark said, the studies show that people in higher tax states don't move because they're here because they like to be here. That's why they're here. It would have to be very punitive to get them to move. We are trying to do other things like second home tax as a way of getting to the other assets. I think we're going to see that. The governor said he's supportive of that as well. So that's one tax that he said he supports. So there's other things that we can do. I've talked to wealthy people that say they want to pay more in taxes because, like as Mark said, they have gotten tax breaks from the Trump administration the first term and in the second term. And so they're like, I have money, I love Vermont, I love my community, I want to pay this stuff because they want to be here. There will be some people moving, but they're because of the climate or something else. They often move for other reasons. If we're not talking about a huge jump, if we have just like a 1% tax just on your income over $500,000, that's not enough to cause somebody to leave a state that they love. If they're already going to move to Florida, they might complain about the taxes, but the evidence is that they were going to move away anyway.
Okay, we're going to move on to Article 5. Article 5 reads, shall the voters raise and appropriate the sum of $54,405 for the operation and maintenance of the cemeteries? And as you guys leave, thank you for your service. Greatly appreciate it. Would somebody like to move Article 5? Been moved, and do we have a second? It's been seconded. We're open for discussion on Article 5. Michael, get your microphone.
Thank you. Michael Fullerton, currently chair of the Cemetery Commission. Most of the people we deal with in the cemeteries are not going to move. They're here for the duration. Our budget this year is significantly bigger than what we asked for last year, but I want to make 2 points. Point one is you look at page 34, cemetery budget is 2% of the whole town budget. Hardly worth talking about. The major difference, if you've looked at the proposed budget, is we have $9,500 in there to paint the fence at the Old West Church Cemetery. Now, a couple years ago, we got the fence at Robinson Cemetery painted by volunteers. We begged, pleaded, and cajoled all year long, and we just barely managed to get it done, thanks to the U32 football squad. We can probably get them to help us on this fence again. But this fence is more complex, almost as large, and it's been sitting there for 2 years unpainted. It's got to be painted. It's a historic district. We are required to maintain the fence the way it was. The estimate we have is the lowest of a couple of estimates we got from our sexton and from Kobe Heiss of Heiss Painting. That's the $9,500. What we will do is try very hard to get volunteers to paint this fence. But once it's primed, it has got to be painted before winter. We can't leave it all winter long with primer. If we get the priming done, we can get Heiss Painting to do the final coat, and that'll cut it by about half. But if we can't get a firm, solid commitment from volunteers, we're going to spend this money. Our pledge is, as you read in our report, if we get this thing painted with volunteers and the town doesn't have to pay to have it done, that money will roll over and be a big chunk out of next year's budget. The other interesting point is if you take that money out of our budget request, last year we asked for $49,946. This year it would only be $44,905. That's mainly because we had a special project last year to rebuild a fence at the Ainsworth Cemetery. That's nearly done. There's a bunch of brush and an old stump that have to be moved there, and we put in a couple more boards. That fence will be painted this summer, and I have no doubt 8 or 10 people could paint that fence in a day. And as I somewhat snarkily said in the report, I hope all the people who voted to have a wooden fence instead of a chain fence will be there with brushes in hand. Any question?
Okay, any other discussion of Article 5, or are we ready for the question? And the question is, shall the voters raise and appropriate the sum of $54,405 for the operation and maintenance of the cemeteries? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and we'll move on to Article 6. Shall the voters raise...
Thank you.
Shall the voters raise and appropriate the sum of $1,000 to fund the cemetery fence and infrastructure fund? Would somebody move this article? It's been moved and seconded. Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, I think we're ready for the question. All those in favor of Article 6, shall the voters raise and appropriate the sum of $1,000 to fund the cemetery fence and infrastructure fund, please say aye. Opposed? And Article 6 passes. Article 7, shall the voters raise and appropriate $34,881 for library services provided through the Kellogg Hubbard Library? Would somebody like to move this article? It's been moved, and is that a second, Linda? Okay. Moved and seconded. We are open for discussion. Yes, sir. Microphone's on its way. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jeff Dean. I'm the representative from Calais on the Board of Trustees at Kellogg Hubbard Library. I just wanted to mention a few things about the library and then as background, and then I'm actually going to make a motion to make an amendment. But first I'll say some things about the library. Good news is Calais residents are using the library. There are 10% more people from Calais using the library last year than there were the year before. The library is not just a place where people check out books, whether physical or electronic. People go there for work, for study, after school, to get warm, to get printing done, to use computers. There are meeting spaces, there are programs, dozens of programs, outreach. People come into the community to deliver books to people who can't make it to town. It's really a hub of activity and has been, I went there as a kid myself after school. It's a place where people gather and do things besides just getting books, which itself is, of course, a great thing. The library did request, when we went to the select board in the fall, a 3% increase over last year's funding, which is just below the inflation rate in the Northeast, so 3.3% inflation in the Northeast. We asked for a 3% increase. The Select Board has warned in Article 7 level funding from last year. So we had requested about $1,000 more. The Select Board did not warn that. So I am going to make a motion, let me just read this out, if that's okay, to amend the article to provide $35,927 for library services provided through Kellogg Hubbard Library. And then I'll say a couple more things if I can get a second to that.
It's been moved and seconded, and the amendment was for 35,000, how much?
927.
Okay.
And so, the other things I wanted to mention is that that's requesting about just over $21 per person in Calais. The library fee for those who are not residents is $60 a year. Sometimes people talk about, well, why doesn't everybody just get a library card if they want it? That for Calais residents who would get them would be, 3 times what we're asking. Not everyone does use the library, and I do understand that some people would rather not pay for the library since they don't use the services. But one reason I emphasize the nature of the library is that it provides a huge community service for people in the surrounding towns, in Montpelier, and for the price of a lunch out, you basically get a lot of daycare after school, you get meeting rooms, you get places where people come in out of the cold, you get free Wi-Fi, many other services that have a real positive impact on the local communities and in Montpelier. We asked Montpelier residents to pay 3 times the amount of those that pay outside of town, so it's almost $60 if you're a Montpelier resident, because we recognize there's easier access in Montpelier. So we're requesting with that amended amount just below inflation increase, so essentially real level funding as opposed to dollar amount level funding. And the last thing I'll say is that in the last 10 years, the budget of Kellogg Hubbard Library has also been below the rate of inflation as the budget was increased over time.
Thank you. Other discussion on the amendment? Yes? Get you a microphone. No, he has it over there.
Thank you. Mark Brown, East Calais. I normally don't speak, but one of the things we talk about in Vermont all the time is bringing young families. I'd love to call myself young, but whatever. Anyway.
Younger than me.
Thank you. So we lived in Plymouth, Massachusetts 8 years ago. We were looking to move back to Vermont. My first thought was to move up near Georgia, where I was born, where I grew up. We came to Vermont for about a week. We spent 2 days in the Burlington, St. Albans, Georgia area, a couple days here in this central Vermont area, a couple days in Brattleboro. The thing that persuaded us that we wanted to be in this part of the state was Kellogg Hubbard Library. We visited there, the kids loved it. We do use it for all those things you described. On in-service days, I've left my kids there. I know they have people they can count on. It's a wonderful place, but it is a big part of the reason we moved here, so I support this.
Anybody else want to get into this? Yes, in the middle.
Hi. So I keep hearing great things about the library in Montpelier, and it's great that it's got all these services and opportunities for people to use it and get together. It is good that we're funding it. However, I think that especially the amendment, pretty much $36,000, it's a lot of money. And I just think it's way too much money. And we should fund it, but maybe not. I would just like to ask 2 questions. One, what's the percentage of people from Calais, residents in Calais, that use the library? Do we have a percentage? And another thing, I would like people here in the room, if you do use the services at the library, to raise your hand. Okay, so that's a very good percentage of the room. Thank you. Good. I mean, we live in the country. I don't, talk to many of you, so this is good. Thank you.
Okay, more comment? We have a hand up here, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel Keeney, Kent Hill Road. Yeah, I just wanted to speak in support of the library. So on page 106 is the library report. 550 patrons from Calais each year utilize the library. So by my count, that's right about 50%, maybe a little under. They abide by my chronic overdue books. I much appreciate that. I used the meeting room recently, one of which is named the Calais Room. I encourage you to check out all the beautiful improvements in the downstairs now that the utilities have been moved out of the basement. And also, I just wanted to comment on the fact that a lot of us struggle to sort of place value and ascribe our own ownership to regional resources in our central Vermont region. And I understand that because it's in Montpelier, it may feel to some like it's Montpelier's library, and I, for one, do not feel that way. I very much feel like it's a regional library that I have ownership of. So, also, people ask for the money that they need to operate their institutions, and the library asked for the amount that it needed to operate its institution. I support giving them the money they asked for. Thank you.
Hand up over there in the stand on the left. My left, anyway.
I'm pretty old too, and I remember going to the library as a child, and I was from a very poor community, and nobody ever said, you can't come in here, and they never said, there's not a book in here you can't take out. And what I really appreciate about this library that we have is the friendliness of the people. I don't go very often, but I'll tell you, when I drive by it, I give you a good thought, because it's the one place, especially in our world today, where we can walk in and find the book you really want to read.
A hand up on the right here at the top of the stand.
Hi, Chris Andreessen, Haggett Road. And I was on the committee that looked at all these expenditures, this particular one as well as the ones that follow in the next article. And there was quite a discussion. There was no denial that it's a well-used resource. And as I recall, and other people on the committee can correct me if I'm wrong, the thought in the level funding pertained to the fact that we saw expenses going up everywhere, whether it's roads and health insurance. And we did look at the library and their funding. They have a large endowment. I think it's like $9 million that they use to help fund their sources. They do a lot of fundraising. They have a lot of money coming in, and we thought that it would be better spent to use that to level fund them rather than and have that extra money go to stay in our pockets rather than go to the library.
Got a hand up in the back on this side.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gallagher from Maple Corner. I'm also on the committee, and I'm a user of Kellogg Hubbard Library. I love the library. I think they provide fabulous services. I'm also aware that people are losing their health care. People are hungry and have less access to food. There's the housing shortage. There's a lot of pressure on people, and something has to give. The library will be okay if this year, when things are really tight for people, they get level funded. If you look at the list of organizations in the next article, there's organizations that are helping people in dire straits that are asking for $1,000. I'm not saying don't fund the library. I'm just saying that there are a lot of competing interests, and we have to consider those who can't afford to have things go up and up and up and up.
Down in front. Microphone's right behind you.
I want to speak in support of the library, but I think what Sarah Gallagher just said makes a lot of sense. People do have a lot of needs. I also want to point out that you said you could go into the library and get any book you wanted. In fact, you really can get any book you want. Interlibrary loan gets books from out of state for me sometimes, from other universities, and it's just a fabulous program. We're so lucky to have such a good library, but I think we should level fund it. Thank you.
Got a hand on the left, and then we'll go to Jeff.
I was always
Please tell us who you
John
are.
Rosenblum, Worcester Road. I was always never understood why Calais didn't have its own library. I mean, I lived in Rochester, a similar sized town, had its own library. Hancock, town of 500, has its own library. Calais has been free riding, on not having a library, not having a fire department, not having an ambulance service. A library is actually a place where desperate people who are in need, who have no other source of information, go to. And so it's a place that is used by everyone, by the rich, by the poor. It's not appropriate to level fund them. Their budget is quite tight. They've been underneath the inflation rate for years, and so funding them to the inflation rate is, or less, is what they're asking for, is very appropriate, and I think I support it.
Hand it over to Jeff now.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say I do recognize that there's a lot of tightening and difficulty, and that's one of the reasons that we did just ask for effective level funding. And the other thing to mention too is the library does have an endowment, and money from the interest paid in that endowment is one of the reasons that we actually only asked for such a relatively small amount of money from each resident. Most municipal libraries in the state average out to about $45 or $47 per resident. Here it's just over $21. Most municipal libraries have 75% of their funding through taxes. The Kellogg Hubbard Library is just about 50%. And so it's the sort of responsible stewardship of maintaining an endowment that helps generate money that keeps the costs down. I know it sounds like it's like a lot of money, but it's not just sitting there. It's actually generating money to help us maintain the kind of programs we can use. And the other thing I'll say is, I wish it wasn't so, but the library is also used by people who are desperate. People go in the winter to stay warm. People come in the summer to be cool. People go there who don't have very good job prospects and use the computers to find out information to try to better themselves. So yes, it's a library, it lends books, and we might not think that's as important as getting your next meal, but it also does in fact provide services that should be provided elsewhere and aren't. And so I just want people to keep that in mind.
Okay. Greg, we'll get you a microphone.
Again, I'm Craig Line. Many of you know the years that I spent on the Kellogg Hubbard board, so I'm very familiar with it. I have a question for the town administrator, if that is all right.
If it's to the library issue, it is.
It is. Remind us, Kari, what the percent increase in the town budget is, please.
The highway fund and general government increase is 5.4%.
Okay, so there you go. The town itself, what you all voted for, I did not, cannot keep to the rate of inflation. But the library is coming to us to ask for a modest increase, not quite up to the level of the rate of inflation. And with that, I would like to call the question, please.
Okay, the question's been called. That's not debatable. All those in favor of ending debate on the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those who want to continue discussion, please say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we will vote on the question as amended, on the question of the amendment, which was, shall the voters raise and appropriate $35,927 for library services provided through the Kellogg Hubbard Library? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and the motion's been amended. We're back now to the main question. Doug, you have the floor. We'll get you a microphone.
I know the library's going through, everybody here is going to vote for the library. But my problem is, I think it's poor management down there in that library. Now, the reason is, last year I think it was flooded out. And we paid how many thousands of dollars for a furnace? I would have thought they would have had insurance to cover that furnace.
Jeff, do you want to respond?
Yeah, actually, none of the repairs from the flooding came back to taxpayers. That was covered entirely by FEMA funding. The library did an outstanding job, actually, of getting full recovery from the flooding, which was $1.5 million worth of damage, and it was all covered by FEMA.
Okay, we are on the main question. Are you ready for it? You've amended it, so the question now is, shall the voters raise and appropriate $35,927 for library services provided through the Kellogg Hubbard Library? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and Article 7 passes. Article 8 asks, shall the voters raise and appropriate the total sum of $31,649 to meet the amounts requested by the following organizations in Calais and Central Vermont areas, which organizations provide social services for the benefit of Calais residents, such amounts being reasonably necessary for support thereof, and they are listed then on page 9 of your report. And again, the total is $31,649. Can we have a motion to approve this article? It's been made. Motion's been made. Do we have a second? We have a second. Okay, we are open for discussion. And is there somebody, Barbara, going to report on this article? You?
Yes. I'm on the committee that reviews these requests, and others are here. So if you have anything you want to add to what I'm saying, I just want to point out a couple of changes from previous year. And you can see that the article is warned on page 9, but it is page 60. 60 and 61 will show you the distinctions between FY26 this year and next year, FY27, which is what you're voting on. I just want to point out that Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice had an increase. That was because last year they actually had an error in their request to us. So you'll see that it's level funding from prior year, the year prior to that. That was an error that they discovered after the fact and after the vote we had last year. The Montpelier Senior Center is a request that we recommended to the select board be reduced, and they accepted. This was in part because we saw less detail from the Montpelier Senior Center of how many Calais residents were using the facilities and the resources there. It's not that we were negative about the Montpelier Senior Center, but just that we felt the Twin Valley Senior Center actually had provided significant information and detail about the Calais residents using the facilities and resources and meals. And we felt that resources spent there, at least in this year in particular, made sense to redirect. So that reduction at Montpelier Senior Center is to $4,000. People's Health and Wellness inadvertently did not make a request last year, so that's why you see the $1,500 this year and not last year. Twin Valley Senior Center, again, a significant increase over last year from $4,000 to $5,000. The committee can back me up on this, but the detail that they provided was significant in terms of the number of meals, medical, medical resources and so forth that they provide to Calais residents was quite impressive, and we felt strongly about continuing that. Although I will say the committee did also say these increases maybe can't continue as they are because they're significant. And then lastly, I'll just mention that Prevent Child Abuse Vermont made a request. It was their first that we had seen in our tenure reviewing these, and we made a decision to support a $500 contribution there. I think their request was $1,000. Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, any other questions? I'm happy to comment, or others on the committee can add.
Okay.
I think there's a question.
Where's the question? Yes, in the middle, Rick.
Could you give me more detail on what the window dressers is? I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, great. We have a member here, I believe, and we need a mic.
Bill Powell, speaking for Window Dressers. It's a voluntary organization based in Maine. The purpose of Window Dressers is to create thermal inserts for windows. Eligible households can get their inserts without charge. It's a self-attestation of income. This totally volunteer as far as the local community. Calais has about 4 volunteers, 5 perhaps. We're always looking for new blood, so if you're interested, let me know. It's a build custom window insert process. We take orders, we visit the customer's house, take measurements, and then there's a build. There are multiple builds. There are probably 20 different projects throughout Vermont, also separately New Hampshire, Maine. It's based, the organization is a not-for-profit based in Maine. Great website if you're interested. There's more info, or catch me after the meeting. I'm glad to talk more. Did I answer your question?
Other discussion on this article? John?
Just a quick question to Barbara. So the Calais Woodbury Food Shelf requested to be level funded despite increasing need? Yes?
That's my understanding, yes.
Do we have a second? It's been moved and seconded to end debate. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. Those in favor, those opposed to ending debate, please say nay. The ayes have it, and we are ready for the question, which says, shall the voters raise and appropriate the total sum of $31,649 to meet the amounts requested by the following organizations in Calais and Central Vermont areas, which organizations provide social services for the benefit of Calais residents, such amounts being reasonably necessary for support thereof, and then we list the 29 or so organizations in that total amount. All those in favor of this article, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Article 8 has passed. Article 9, shall the voters establish a reserve fund under the control and direction of the Select Board in accordance with 24 VSA subsection 2804 to be known as the Real Estate Acquisition Fund for the purposes of acquiring real estate for the benefit of the town. Would somebody like to move this article? It's been moved and seconded. We're open for discussion. Yes, Barry? Wait for the microphone.
Just the description of, because this is a new reserve fund, what's your thoughts on it?
Thanks for the question. So over the last couple of years and through my tenure, over the last 3 years on the Select Board, we've needed to entertain the idea of acquiring land on behalf of the town for one reason or another. Some of those reasons involve the storage of material to give ourselves better purchasing power and better pricing for road material. We're pretty limited in our space. A need for either building a town garage or supplementing a town garage or the storage of equipment. There are any number of needs that the town may have for acquiring land, and right now we just have that general fund balance to weigh. We're not building funds in a particular fund reserved for that purpose, and so this was intended to and what I would call kind of a nominal funding amount in the next article, just to establish that fund, and then to open up the opportunity as a community for us to have a conversation around how we fund that moving forward, and give us a little more proactivity in our considerations of opportunities to purchase land for those purposes.
Further discussion on this article? Seeing none, I think we're ready for the question, and the question is, shall the voters establish a reserve fund under the control and direction of the Select Board in accordance with 24 VSA subsection 2804 to be known as the Real Estate Acquisition Fund for the purposes of acquiring real estate to benefit the town? If you're in favor, please say aye. Aye. If you're opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and Article 9 passes. Article 10, shall the voters raise and appropriate the sum of $500 to fund the Real Estate Acquisition Fund? Would somebody move this article? So moved. It's been moved and seconded. We're open for discussion. Yes, Barry, get a microphone, please.
I support the concept of this, and I think we need to think about maybe buying a piece of land where houses could be put up. But I would suggest, rather than supporting the $500, although it's immaterial, that you think about moving the $500 from the fund balance, which would be just as easy. You've got the support of the town to move ahead with it. It doesn't make any difference one way or the other, but I think at some point, if we could find a piece of land and then actually, I think the state allows us to borrow money or something, get something from them for water and sewer, we really need to think about putting up some duplex housing in town. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Yes, we have a hand in front. Mac, you haven't spoken today.
Matt Gardner Morse, up on County Road. I'm really leery of the town buying property because it reduces our property taxes, our taxable property on town. So I hope the board really looks, thoughtfully before we take property that's being taxed out of our town. Thank you.
Okay, we had a hand up in the stands. Yeah, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Habib Mailud. I live in East Calais, Vermont. I guess my question would be, I know the select board said something about talking about how you'd raise money, but obviously real estate's really expensive. So I was wondering if they've considered how to raise enough money for this real estate acquisition fund to actually be useful.
That's a very fair question, and that's why the amount that we're proposing right now is a token amount. It is hard to make decisions on the select board and do so in a way that represents the interests of the community and the will of the community. And so this has been something that has been discussed for a number of years now, and we've seen opportunities come before us that we didn't think that we were in the position to act on. And so we're really hoping that this is a catalyst for that discussion, so that we can get feedback on that from the community and how we fund that. And in light of all of the growing expenses, I wouldn't expect that funding to really change all that much, and I think that there's a good conversation to be had around the use of the fund balance, or a mix of the fund balance with loans when certain opportunities arise. There's no doubt that the acquisition of land is going to be expensive, and it would take a while to grow this particular fund's balance to take action. But that's a conversation that we're hoping to start.
Further discussion, the hand in the middle.
Thank you. Two things. It might be, I know $500, like it was mentioned, is not really much. Not that we want to put much more because we keep adding to everything. But I would like to see some sort of maybe investment like CD, and it doesn't have to be 5 years. There's CDs for 3 months, 6 months, and so on. So in a way, so whatever gets put into the fund, it grows. And then I would like to call for an amendment to the question to have that money be transferred, let's say, from general fund or whatever surplus we would have on any fund whenever possible. We should be transferred from any surplus. That would be my amendment request. Thank you.
Okay, so the amendment is to amend the article so that funds would be not new funds, but provided through the general fund balance. Is that your amendment? Do we have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The nays appear to have it. Okay, call's been made for division. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment, raise your cards, and I get some help from.
Jamie and I are sharing a card.
Okay. Do you want to do that side? Kari and Barbara, can you count this side?
What about the two in the back? I got those. Okay. I got 26.
Okay, so 31, 50, 57. Okay, put your hands. Yep. Okay, those who are opposed to the amendment, now you can raise your cards. Okay, the ayes have it. The article is amended. Are you ready for the main question? And the main question is, shall the voters raise $500 from transfer from surplus or the town's general fund to fund the real estate acquisition fund? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes appear to have it, and the article passes. The next 4 articles are about how we pay taxes. Then we've got 4 more articles on the fire departments that serve us. It's about 11:40 now. We'll go try to go and get lunch around 12:30 if we can. And we may have to come back if we go slowly. So Article 11, shall the voters authorize the payment of property taxes in 2 equal installments, with the first installment due on or before 4 p.m. on a date that falls not less than 30 days after the tax bills are mailed, but not earlier than September 1, 2026, with the second installment due or before 4 p.m. on Monday, November 16, 2026. Would somebody move Article 11? It's been moved and seconded. Are you ready for the question? Or do we have any discussion? All those in favor of Article 11, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry.
I've mentioned this before.
It seems really unfair to ask people to pay taxes right before Christmas and, or the holidays. And also, September is a big month for paying off. If you're a parent and your kids are enrolled in anything, it's a big month. I don't understand why we can't pay these earlier in the year or find some way to make this better. If anybody wants to help me figure out how to do that, I would really like somebody to work with on that, because I think it's unfair to do it at these times.
Okay, we have a hand up right there.
Nancy Toulis, Woodbury Mountain Road. How I deal with paying taxes is every month I send between $400 and $600 to the town office to pay my taxes, and because I absolutely would not be able to come up with all that money at once, so that's how I do it.
Any other discussion? Yes, we have a question in front.
Is that a problem for the town clerk and everything? Well, then it would be good just to make that budget plan people more aware of it if that's an option. And because some people do it well and some don't, so.
Okay, we have a hand up in the middle. And we need to give a hand to the mic runners.
Thank you. Thank you. I was looking at, it says 4 p.m. Is that the latest deadline on the Monday, November 16th? So I would like to amend. So this is what happened. This is what happened. Many people don't get out of work until 4, and if they get the money out of their account just to be able to bring it, sometimes they're just gonna be dropping it off in the mailbox because the town office is going to be closed. So when would be the soonest that the town would be processing the fees? The Tuesday morning. So I would say that if by Tuesday, first thing in the morning, the payment is not in the mailbox, then I would like to extend, long story short, the deadline to that Tuesday, which is the day that they're going to be processed, first thing in the morning when the office opens. Because otherwise you get penalized, and for what? Because it happened to us. You get penalized because you didn't put the envelope at 4, or because you couldn't make it because of work, but then yet the envelope is not gonna be touched anyways until the next day. So what's the deal with that? I think that wouldn't hurt anybody. So that's my proposal, to go for an amendment for the deadline, to extend it.
So you want to extend it, as I'm hearing you, until September 2nd at 8 a.m. and November 17th at 8 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
And is that, do I have the time the office opens correct? 9 a.m., okay, make it 9 a.m.
Yes, please.
Okay. Barbara, did you want to speak to this amendment, or do we have a second to the amendment? Okay, we do have a second. Barbara, you can speak.
So I am not in favor of that amendment because we mail the tax bills in August. That gives you 4 months to make that payment. And if you can't make it by 4 p.m. on November 16th, then get it there the day before. You have 4 months to get it in. And so I would just recommend that you get it in one day ahead of this deadline.
Further discussion, or are you ready for the question? Ready for the amendment? And the amendment, yes, go ahead.
I just add some more commentary to that and context to what Barbara was getting at. There's been a fair amount of discussion about this. This is a conversation that had been had with the town employees and the administrative staff for the town. You have to set a deadline at some point, and the more we started talking about when and how to define that, this was the end of day on the day that it's due. and really helps the staff create a line that says this is when it's due and this is when it's late. And it saves a fairly significant amount of back and forth around tax collection when we do have the late payers.
Okay, Barbara, you want to add one more thought?
I do, thank you. If your mortgage is late, if your credit card payment is late, there's a payment or a penalty fee for that. So this is really, if you just think of it in terms of that, there's a deadline. Just get it there before the deadline time, please.
Okay, John?
To the amendment, this problem is, to me, easily resolved. And the town of Woodbury resolved it, I think, 40 or 50 years ago. And I think it's still the policy there to this day. On the day the last day taxes are due, the town clerk comes in the evening and keeps the office open till, I don't know, 8 o'clock. And that way the people who can least afford are always the ones paying at the last minute. They're always the ones paying the interest on the credit card bills. I don't. I have it automatically withdrawn. We got to think about the people with the least ability to pay their bills here, folks. I also I'm going to make an amendment. I noticed that no longer do we allow the postmark date to count as the date as having paid taxes timely. That's coming up. Oh, it's in the next article? It says delivery to the town on those dates. Well, we'll talk about it then. Thanks, Craig. So I would suggest that let's not create impossibility arguments. Let's figure out solutions. A solution, as this amendment is trying to arrive at, I think possibly even a friendly amendment to your amendment, if that's possible, would be to have the office open. Just takes one person. We have a new administrative assistant here who's wonderful, who could come in and chat with the residents and collect the tax. I'll volunteer. I'll volunteer. I think would you accept an amendment to your amendment? And that would be for the office to be open until 8 p.m. on the day the taxes are due.
Okay, so
I'm looking for a second.
that is now your amendment? Okay, so we're now amending the amendment is now the original dates at 8 p.m. That's what's just happened here. The original dates, there are two dates in here, September 1st or 2nd, I can't. September 1st and November 16th are the two dates, and we're changing the time to be 8 p.m. Are you ready for that question? Yes. Get you the mic.
So I don't want to cost, thank you for volunteering, but I don't want to cost any extra on anybody. Basically, I'm just saying nobody was there. It was I believe it was like 4:05, not even 4:10, and nobody was there. So if you can't tell when an envelope is being deposited just because somebody was closing the door early, I think just by being able to drop it off in the mailbox until midnight or whatever the next morning, sorry, I don't mean to be confusing you going back and forth, but I don't want to cost any extra on anybody. It's just once you collect, when you open the office the following morning, that you're ready to process those payments. You collect everything from your box, your mailbox, and that is it. That should be it, because you got all your payments, and it doesn't change anything, and it doesn't ask for extra from anybody. Just the very next morning, when you open, grab everything, you empty your mailbox, the drop box, and that is it. And that's the first thing as the office opens. I don't think that's much to ask for those that cannot make it. And yes, I'm also about paying early, but some people just it's been really hard with inflation, and they are trying to pay whatever's due first. So it's just a small ask, doesn't cost anything. I would like to go back to my initial amendment. I think it's, thank you, sorry. I think it's a little bit more doable because it's not asking for anything extra physically or monetarily from anybody.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we're back to now the next day. John, you're dropping your proposed friendly amendment. And we're back to September 2nd and November 17th at 9 a.m. Okay. Yeah, Doug, you had the mic. You can. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's for the next.
That's no what?
For the next article.
The next article, I guess I'm ahead of myself. I'm always trying to be ahead of myself.
Okay, well. Yeah, you've got.
I would like to return to Barbara Butler's experience and expertise on this and then call a vote. So I would like to hand the mic to Barbara if she's willing to tell us, in your experience, is this a reasonable expectation? You've been doing this a long time. And then I'd like to call the vote. And I think we have important things to talk about, but I would like to defer to someone who has actual experience managing this. Are you willing to repeat your comment?
So I actually, thank you so much for the opportunity, but I'd like to defer to, since I'm not going to be there having to deal with this coming year, I'd like to defer to our treasurer, Kari.
From my perspective, it doesn't really matter if it's 4 p.m. or 17 hours later. But in my limited experience, tax collection seasons, deadlines are a challenge for some folks. And there are going to be people that are late for 9 a.m. as well. So just take that into consideration.
Okay, are we ready for the amendment? The amendment changes the date by 1 day, moving it to 9 a.m. All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it, and the amendment is defeated. We're back to the main motion. Are you ready for that question? All those in favor of the article, which is that the voters authorize payment of property taxes in 2 equal installments, with the first installment due on or before 4 p.m. on a date that falls not less than 30 days after the tax bills are mailed, but not earlier than September 1, 2026, and with the second installment due on or before 4 p.m. on Monday, November 16, 2026. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and Article 11 is adopted. Article 12, shall each property tax installment payment be made via one of the following options: by delivery to the town treasurer by 4 p.m. on the due date, by U.S. Postal Service or other courier with delivery to the town treasurer by 4 p.m. on the due dates, by credit card payment via www.calisvermont.gov by 4 p.m. on the due dates, or by ACH direct debit by the due dates. Would somebody move this article? Been moved and seconded. We're open for discussion. There's a question from Craig. Go ahead.
Thank you. As John brought up, part 2 of this article is confusing, and I would like to propose an amendment that reads identical to last year's Article 15, which is on page 118, to now read, by U.S. Postal Service with postmark on or before the due dates, and then you could add in, or by other courier to be delivered by 4 p.m. on the due dates. That would be my amendment.
Just want to make sure I'm following you. Do you want it to be postmarked, or do you want it to be delivered by 4 p.m.?
It could be both, as long as it's stipulated that by the Postal Service, the postmark counts.
I just want to be clear. You're saying the postmark should be good enough even if it hasn't arrived by 4 p.m.?
Right. None of us knows when the U.S. Postal Service will deliver anything.
Okay.
So we can't control that.
Do we have a second to this amendment? Okay, the amendment has been, yes? Okay.
Yeah, so this is a change in proposed policy to remove the postmark as a valid indicator of timeliness. And the reason for that, there's 3 reasons really. One is we're seeing a lot of variability, as Craig's speaking to, in delivery times. And so it has interfered with the tax collection process to have to wait 10 or even 12 days after the due date for all the mail to clear that with the appropriate postmark. Secondly, something new this year that we experienced, which was that a handful of residents reported dropping off postage at their post office, different post offices, by the due date, but it wasn't postmarked on that day. You might have read about this in Digger recently, where the Postal Service is sending mail elsewhere to be processed and postmarked on a different day. And all we have to work with for evidence of timeliness is the postmark under the current system. And that was a very difficult issue for people that experienced that. And the third thing is, and it pains me to say this, but our postal service, it is somewhat tenuous. We're getting reports of other towns, other municipalities where delivery is not being provided anymore. Middlesex, most recently, is not receiving mail at their town office. U32 and the Washington Central office no longer receiving mail. So I just think we need to start thinking about alternatives to relying on postmarks.
Okay, we are on the amendment, and there's a hand up in the middle.
So I would like to speak in favor of the amendment. So it doesn't have to be the Postal Service. It can be UPS, FedEx, whatever people might choose. And if that's the problem, because we don't want to delay the processing of the taxes, if you wanted to, you could ask for, has to be postmarked by this date, which is a week before, maybe. I think that's reasonable. If there's a problem, I think me personally, when I want to make sure something gets to its destination and I have proof for it, I certify it. And I think that's just whoever personal preference, if they want to send it certified. I mean, we're in Calais and we do have a post office, so you would think a week would be plenty of time to say, has to be postmarked by this date and should arrive by this date at 4. So I think if we just add the postmark, I would like to make an amendment to the amendment to add the postmark or certification of the payment letter a week prior to when it's due, and it arrives by the date that's already on the article. That should be fair, and just any service.
Hand up. I didn't take it as a friendly amendment, so there can be an amendment to an amendment. So if you wanted to accept it, that would be different. Okay.
Again, I just want to talk on behalf of the treasurer and the dialogue and context behind these decisions aren't really made in a vacuum, and really it's not about what the date is or what the specifics are. It comes down to what happens when there is a late payment and somebody says, well, I put it in the post office box. I didn't know that it wasn't going to get picked up at the end of the day. I don't have to pay the late fee. And so the things that we put, the words and the deadlines that we articulate in here are important for our staff to be able to not have to make discretionary decisions. I know that we're a small community and discretionary decisions seem like easy things to do, but those small exceptions are very challenging and I would argue inappropriate under these types. It's hard to manage exceptions with equity. And that's hard to say, but that is the kind of the black and white that we have to work within when the town administrators or the administration staff have to weigh who's right and who's wrong and who gets a late fee and who doesn't. And that's just the way it is. And there are other communities who are weighing the same, who have gotten rid of the postmark for this exact reason, and just went with a due date.
Doug Lloyd, Lightning Ridge Road. Boy, do we miss Eva.
We miss Eva. Okay. Craig, we'll get you a microphone.
By removing the postmark, you folks, I understand, I mean, my check didn't clear for several weeks. When I mail my payment, I take it into the post office before they close and say, please postmark this in front of me. So I know it's postmarked. I don't just dump it in a box somewhere and assume it's good to go. This little thing, here we are talking about it for 15 minutes, means something to most people. You're penalizing us for the Postal Service's lax behavior, and I think you should give us the benefit of the doubt. And it's your job, you're there, yeah, they come in later, we've authorized you to borrow money in anticipation of taxes, or we will. You know, I give you no sympathy. It's your job. You have to deal with it. It's harder, but I would like the postmark to be in this article. Thank you.
Okay, as I understand the amendment to the amendment, you're asking for a postmark a week earlier than the published due date and receipt by the due date. Okay, that's the question we're on. Do you want to... Do we have a second to that? We do. Yes. Okay. Okay. Stephanie, you want to call the question? Okay, we're now on whether to end debate on the amendment to the amendment. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Okay, we've ended debate. We're now on this question of whether to change to having a postmark 1 week earlier than the published due date and receipt by the due date. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Nay. Okay, the amendment to the amendment is defeated. Now, Craig, you may have to correct me because this is getting a little confusing, but your amendment, which is what we're now on, is to go back to last year's language and simply allow a postmark by the published dates. Are you ready for that question? Yes, you're.
I just want to add real quick that it is not necessarily the post office fault. Sometimes we do have storms. It's November. We still have snow sometimes. So yes, we can control it. And putting it in a box, that does not count as postmark. If you want to make sure it's postmarked, like he said, you take it, have them stamp it in front of you, you drop it personally, not just put it in your mailbox or just a random mailbox, because that is not postmarked. It gets stamped whenever they get it, but that shouldn't count as a problem. It's just saying. Thank you.
Okay, John?
I'd just like to underscore that I think probably forever we've accepted a postmark date, and I think we should continue to do that. When you folks submit your income tax forms to the feds, they rely on a postmark date. How would you all feel if they said, no, we're not going to go by that anymore. We're going to go by when we receive it? Would you be offended if you had to pay severe penalties? You know, we are just a smaller version of that. We are a government, and we serve the people. Our town government's trying to do it as expeditiously as possible. It's not like there's an overwhelming amount of envelopes that come in. I was on the select board 18 years. I never heard about more than 2 or 3 that came in really late. There was a resident down in Adamant, and they paid theirs early, like they were very responsible. They paid it way early, and it just never arrived. Kind of a little bit different situation, but we had a conversation about that. They met with the town, and we wound up waiving the penalties and interest and stuff. But, you know, there are vagaries in every system. I think we need to be always attentive to our increasingly aging population in this town. I feel like I'm at a convention of old age home residents here. We're old, and we're getting older, and it's getting harder for people to not only pay the bills, but meet these ongoing deadlines for everything in their lives. So it's been my every experience. If I come on the day that, or near the date that taxes are due, I give it to the postmaster, and ask them to stamp it. Everyone knows that. I think it's cruel to start removing all these protections. They're protections of our residents who can least afford. That's what these are about, folks. So be thoughtful.
Okay, there was a hand in front earlier. Nadine, and then Linda.
Nadine Martin, East Calais. I was for, I think, 8 years, the collector of delinquent taxes. And yes, it creates difficulties for people. Our taxes are very high. Relying on a postmark at this time in our history is not going to help people. I think someone else mentioned earlier, I've been reading about the changes in the way the Postal Service is operating. It's not about our local postmasters. They're wonderful, hardworking people. It's that when you put the mail in, it may not get a postmark until 5 days or a week or more later. So that's creating an issue for people not in this meeting who don't know that. The other thing that used to happen with postmarks is, although you and I know to go and make sure it's legible, many envelopes came with illegible postmarks. If they came early enough, that was not an issue. If they came late, that's an issue. And you cannot ask the collector to treat people differently. We swear an oath to treat everyone the same. So you create real problems when you rely on systems that themselves are not reliable. So I understand the urge to try to give people extra time, but I don't think that solution is actually going to help people.
Okay, Linda, you had your hand up.
I agree to keep the postmark. What happens with the elections? We keep letting go of this, and then we won't even be able to have it happen when we do the elections. I mean, I just wanted to say that I'm for the tradition.
Linda Gray.
I'd like to call the question.
Question's been called. We're calling the question on the amendment, which is to go back to using the post office postal date. All those in favor of the amendment, we're not debating any further. All those in favor of ending debate, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and we've ended debate. We're now on the amendment itself. All those in favor of Craig's proposal to go back to using the postal mark, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. The nays appear to have it. The nays do have it. The amendment is defeated. Okay, we're now going to have a division. Those in favor of the amendment, raise your cards. Okay, 29. Put your cards down. Those opposed to the amendment, raise your. And you have 28. Okay, so the nays have it 57-29. We are back to the main question as printed. Are you ready for that question? Okay, all those, I'll read it one last time. Shall the voters authorize payment of property taxes in 2 equal installments with the first installment due on or before 4 p.m.? Whoop, I'm sorry. Article 12, shall each property tax installment payment be made via one of the following options: by the delivery to the town treasurer by 4 p.m. on the due dates, by the U.S. Postal Service or other courier with delivery to the town treasurer by 4 p.m. on the due dates, by credit card payment via www.calisvermont.gov by 4 p.m. on the due dates, or number 4, by ACH direct debit by the due dates. All those in favor of Article 12, please say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And we're on to Article 13, which asks, shall interest in the amount of 0.5% per month or fraction of a month be charged on unpaid taxes from the due date of each installment pursuant to 32 VSA, subsection 4873. Would somebody move this article? Been moved and seconded. Do we have discussion, or are you ready for the question? Seeing no hands, all in favor of Article 13 to provide, shall interest in the amount of 0.5% per month or fraction of a month be charged on unpaid taxes from the due date of each installment pursuant to 32 VSA, subsection 4873, please say aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 13 passes.
We need a mic. We need to use mics, folks, please. Use the mic.
Thank you. My question was, just for clarification, what it is referred to where it says 5% per month or fraction of a month. Does it get calculated depending on the number of days, which is the percentage of the month, and then the 5% gets divided? It's just asking for clarity. Thank you.
Yeah, so technically, any portion of the month, any number of days could be assessed that amount. In practice, it's assessed on or about the 15th of each month.
Okay, so it would be half
Once
the month, or, so it would be 0.25 if it's before the 15th?
No, it's always just a straight 0.5%, but it's saying that.
Oh, it doesn't matter how many days in the
Right,
month, it will
right.
be a month.
Once
Okay.
per month, once per
That
month.
makes sense. Thank you so much.
Okay, Article 14. Shall the voters set the penalty charged by the collector of delinquent taxes for payments made after the due date for payments to 8%? Would somebody move this article? It's been moved and seconded. We're open for discussion. Yes, we have a hand up in front.
I just had a question. What's the total number of dollars roughly that we have for late amount? I mean, late taxes, you know. I mean, because we're talking 8%. What is 8% of what, generally?
It's a
a
good
one-time
question.
fee.
It's a couple $100,000. This 8%, the combination of the penalty and the interest basically covers the cost of delinquent tax collection since we increased it to 8%. It used to be 3 several years ago.
Okay, so I just have a question about the 8%.
Yeah.
You know, you would know better, but it seems probably the people who are late, not always, are the ones with the least amount of ability to pay. I know that's not always true, knowing some people choose to game it, but it seems a little high, and I'm wondering, is there any reason we shouldn't reduce that to 6%?
Again, I think the 8% makes sense financially because it offsets the cost of the delinquent tax collection. It's also a bit of more of an incentive to be on time, and I think the other thing is that, remember when we first discussed this, it's more than the rate of borrowing, right? So, say credit card debt. So it's an additional incentive to just pay it on time.
Well, having talked to somebody recently who wanted advice on credit card debt, I was amazed to see that people are paying 12 to 24% on credit cards. So I don't know that that's still true. I know it's just a question, but it seems like to lay more on people who are already having trouble paying it. Nadine, you may have some thought about that since you were a tax collector, but anyway, just a question.
Is there further discussion, or are we ready for the question? Yeah, there's a hand up in the middle.
My name is Earl Weller. I live on Gray Road. I guess I don't understand the 8%. Does this mean that I can go 16 months without paying my taxes?
No, you should not do that.
No, I won't. I won't, but what is the 8%?
So the 8% is charged for anyone that's late, one-time charge for being late in November after the second payment. Any amount that's due as of November 17th in this scenario will be charged the 8%. And then there will, and notices are sent out to this and encouraging people to pay, enter a payment plan if needed, and then 0.5% per month as time goes on.
Okay.
After a certain period of time, if thresholds are reached, a property can go to tax sale. It's always our preference and our policy to try to avoid tax sales, but at a certain point, we may have to proceed with that as a way.
Understand. I apologize. I will never be late with my taxes. But you know, to somebody's point, we put away money every month for taxes. We live off a budget. So thank you.
Are you ready for the question? Okay, and the question is, shall the voters set the penalty charged by the collector of delinquent taxes for payment made after the due date for payments to 8%? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. And Article 14 passes. Article 15, shall the voters raise and appropriate $66,168 to fund the operating expenses of the East Montpelier Fire Department paid in quarterly installments starting July 1, 2026. Would somebody like to move this article? You're moving it, Doug? Good, okay. Do we have a second? We have a second. Would anybody like to speak to this article? Okay, you've got the floor.
Last year, I fell down, I chased a cow and tore my Achilles. We called the East Montpelier Fire Department. I fell into the skid steer. I was over there an hour before they come and got me out of the skid steer. It was 2 below zero. And it took them an hour. We had to call twice to get me out of the skid steer. And another thing, too, this guy just spoke up. His wife had a heart attack over here. right? Huh? I had a stroke, but it took the fire department went to Plainfield. Okay, I'd like to, because they're gonna want more money. They ain't getting no more money out of me.
No, my wife did have a stroke, and the issue was not with the emergency services. The issue was with 911. See, my address is 593 Gray Road, Plainfield, but there are 2 Gray Roads serviced by the Plainfield postal area. And so when I first called on my landline in 911, the 911 operator looked it up and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but I see a field." And she was actually right, because she was looking at 593 Gray Road in Plainfield. And the issue was with I called 911, and they use the telephone service. The telephone service lists both your mailing address and your physical address. And Xfinity had us marked down as 593 Gray Road as our mailing address and our physical address. Now, I called the 911 people in the state and had it straightened out. So and fortunately, the 911 operator was good enough to contact East Montpelier, and it was a 3-way conversation, and I mentioned a fellow's name on our road, and they said, "Oh yeah, we know exactly where you are now," and they were right out there. So they were good, Doug. Okay, but they were excellent for us. So thank you.
Okay, we have a hand up over here.
She has no disabilities either. She's doing great.
Great. And please introduce yourself.
James Daly. I live on Marshfield Road in East Calais Village. I was a member of Woodbury Fire Department who serves Calais. I'm now a member of East Montpelier Fire and Ambulance as well. I've been doing that for 11 to 12 years, grand total. Neither agency is fully staffed with the exception of the ambulance in East Montpelier. That ambulance has 2 people on it, and that's it. It is very, very often that we have 2 calls simultaneously, so there's a delay in service. The fire side of the agency is not staffed. It is fully volunteer. So I have to leave my job, I gotta leave my house, whatever the situation might be, go to the fire station to get a fire truck, and then go to wherever we have to go. And when we only have 1 ambulance that's staffed, and if there's multiple calls, okay, well then, unfortunately, there will be a delay. And that does happen, unfortunately. We're a volunteer-based agency. The vast majority of Vermont is covered by volunteer-based agencies. The statewide average for response time is 18 minutes. So, Doug, I do apologize. It's very unfortunate that you had to wait. Unfortunately, it's the reality of living in rural Vermont.
Okay, are you ready for the question, or do you have more to say on there are 2 articles on East Montpelier, 2 on Woodbury, I think. Okay, Article 15, shall the voters raise and appropriate $66,168 to fund the operating expenses of the East Montpelier Fire Department, paid in quarterly installments starting July 1, 2026. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and Article 15 passes. Article 16, shall the voters raise and appropriate $154,637 to fund the operating expenses of the East Montpelier Ambulance, paid in quarterly installments starting July 1, 2026. Would somebody move this article? It's been moved. Do we have a second? It's been moved and seconded. We're open for discussion. Seeing no hands, I'm going to read the article and we will vote. Shall the voters raise and appropriate $154,637 to fund the operating expenses of the East Montpelier ambulance paid in quarterly installments starting July 1, 2026? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. And Article 16 passes. Article 17, shall the voters raise and appropriate $24,888 to be contributed to the Woodbury Volunteer Fire Department for the purposes of a truck loan payment in the amount of $23,888 and to fund the truck maintenance reserve in the amount of $1,000 to be paid in full by July 1, 2026. Would somebody move this article? It's been moved. Do we have a second? And we do have a second. We're open for discussion on the Woodbury Fire Department. Are you ready for the question? Okay, and the question is, shall the voters raise and appropriate $24,888 to be contributed to the Woodbury Volunteer Fire Department for the purposes of a truck loan payment in the amount of $23,888 and to fund the truck maintenance reserve in the amount of $1,000, both to be paid in full by July 1, 2026. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. And Article 17 passes. Must be getting hungry. Yeah. Article 18. Shall the voters raise and appropriate $85,145.57 to be contributed to the Woodbury Volunteer Fire Department, consisting of 1, $35,000 to fund the Capital Replacement Fund, which shall be paid in full by January 1, 2027, and 2, $50,145 for operating expenses, which shall be paid in quarterly installments, parenthesis, $12,536.40, end parenthesis, starting July 1, 2026. Would somebody like to move that? It's been moved. Do we have a second? Do we have any discussion? Would you like it read again, or do you have the gist? Okay, so Article 18, if you're in favor of a total of $145,057, to be paid starting July 1, 2026, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Article 18 has passed. Article 19 is to transact any other business that may legally come before the meeting. Anything, we're open for anything now, but we cannot take any binding action. And the reason for that is that you've got to, if you want to bind the select board or bind the town, you've got to warn it in advance. But we are now open for any discussion. And Stephanie, you haven't spoken all day, so it's your turn.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Kaplan. And I'm sorry to hold you all up, everybody, but we have prepared a survey, and we is Catherine Saunders and I. Catherine is the health officer for the town of Calais. And I just want to mention, because it's relevant, that I've lived in Calais for 42 years. I live on Jack Hill Road. And I've gotten old here, like most of the rest of you. I heard last year about a program called a community nurse. And there's a whole lot of communities in Vermont and New Hampshire that have a community nurse. So I brought this to the attention of the select board, and they were kind of interested. So when they hired Catherine as a health officer, they asked her to look into it. So Catherine got in touch with me, and we've been working on this project ever since. It turns out that there's a nonprofit organization in Lebanon, New Hampshire, that actually helps communities organize community nurses. So we've been in touch with them. The executive director, spoke to the select board. And we prepared information and a survey because we're trying to gauge what kind of interest would there be in having a community nurse in Calais. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about it. And over on the town office website is the survey. There's another piece of paper with some information, and it's got the website of this community nurse organization with lots and lots of more information and about how it works in other communities.
And this organization also is very supportive. They can help communities organize the nurses. They also offer support afterwards. So they're really ongoing. And I just wanted to say something about it. In summary, the town would hire a licensed nurse, and the nurse would kind of watch over Calais' older folks, which apparently there's a lot of them, because there was, we actually have some demographics that are really interesting to put things into perspective. In 2022, Calais had 579 residents over the age of 60, and that was 32.5% of the town, of the residents of the town. I was like astounded when I heard this, but then when you look around, you're not surprised, right? Many of our older residents are isolated. They can be neglected. So the nurse would make contact with individuals and assess their needs and provide support and resources. The community nurse would also work in the community with education on health issues, on safe health practices, how to obtain health care, and other services. They're really basically just overlooking and staying in touch with the older folks in town. They would help with medical and other practical problems, not just medical. I mean, if somebody didn't have enough heat or didn't have enough food, they would be somebody who would go into people's houses with permission and assess these things and see what kind of needs people have. There's nobody who does that right now in our town. They would just make sure they were safe and warm. They wouldn't do medical. They're not doctors. They wouldn't replace doctors. They would be a licensed nurse. But they would also be able to be liaisons with the client's medical providers and advocates for them in the medical system. They're usually a part-time position. The average cost has been around $30,000 a year. They would, in the long run, there's all this evidence that it saves money because it saves people from having to make emergency calls, from having to go to the hospital, because somebody is helping them with resources, helping them with minor things like blood pressure, things that nurses do. So we're trying to gauge what the interest would be in the community. And so Catherine and I prepared a survey, and I'm sorry that a lot of people have left, but the survey's over in the town office table. There's more information there, and as I said, there's also a link, there's a website to this community nurse organization with lots and lots of more information. So we're hoping, I think the select board is interested too, that if there's enough support in this town, then we will continue working and try to establish something. So that's what I have to say about it. If you have questions, Catherine and I can answer them, or you can just go to lunch and read the stuff on the table. But please fill out the survey. It's a paper survey right over there on the town office table, and there's actually a little folder to put it in. It's only got like maybe 4 or 5 questions. It's not going to take you a lot of time. And it's over there, and there's a little folder that says completed surveys, put them in there, and then we will be able to, and we may put this on Front Porch Forum too, given that so many people have left and a lot of people aren't here. But anyway, thank you.
Okay, we are on other business. Barry and then Doug.
People have left or leaving for lunch, but I hope you can hear me. We recently, first of all, I just object to all these people like Stephanie talking about us getting old. We're just gaining wisdom, maybe. But I would like to say that the town just had a vote to keep Calais open. It was a very, we'll say, strongly opinionated on both sides, but it was overwhelmingly to keep the elementary school open.
Could I ask
Yeah.
people who are talking to take it outside so that we can finish this meeting and people can hear each other? Thank you.
We're probably not going to have enough people even to vote, but I would like the town select board to actively support and engage with the Washington Central Unified Union School District not to move our K-3, pre-K to K to East Montpelier, particularly if our numbers are greater than East Montpelier. They're locked into having a full day program at East Montpelier and at Berlin, but I think we're going to find that our pre-K through K are a larger number than theirs. And I really object to moving 3 to 5-year-olds out of our community, particularly after our vote. So there's probably not enough people here, but I would like the support of the resolution, non-binding, of course, everybody here to ask our select board to fully support not moving our pre-K to K to East Montpelier. Thank you.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, it is a motion.
Does it have a second? It's been moved and seconded that the Select Board is asked, as I understand it, to advise the Washington Central School District to keep the pre-K and K in Calais. Are you ready for that question? All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, the ayes do have it, and the motion passes. Doug. Okay, we can hear about your bales of hay. We can hear about your bales of hay in the road.
Okay, right up here on Lightning Ridge Road, I had some bales of hay in the road. And Channel 3 News got a hold of it, and they put it online.
Hold on. Can we get quiet?
I'll ask again, we are still conducting the meeting, so if you want to have conversation, please take it outside. If you're lining up for lunch.
You might be interested in this, folks, because it's going to cost a lot of somebody $1 million.
Just please keep the conversation quiet so we can finish the meeting. Doug, the floor is yours again.
Okay, so I got some bales of hay alongside the road, protecting my maple trees. The road commissioner, Bradley, Bradley is intense and getting, for some reason, he wants me. And the select board is not doing anything about it. He harasses me. He's harassing me all the time. In the summertime, he takes those, don't smile over there, because you're going to be next. So now, he's smiling. Yeah, he is. So now, we had over right around 600 people comment about the select board to WDEV. 600 in my favor. Okay? So I'm trying to figure out right now who I'm going to sue. But I'm going to sue somebody. Because the town wants to charge me $1 million every 18 days. So don't worry about your taxes, because I'm going to pay them for you. So Bradley over here, he knows what's going on. He had the cops come once. He had the cops, I didn't knock on the door, I didn't go to the door. Then he has the cops come again and tells me that he's going to charge me $100 to $1 million every 8, 9, 10 days, something like that. And so they've been harassing me. The chair, the road committee, whatever you want to call him, he's from Pennsylvania. He can't run a bulldozer, an excavator, a backhoe, or anything. And he can't either. So we're in trouble. This town's in trouble. If these don't show up for work, your roads ain't going to get plowed. They're getting plowed. Well, maybe I'll have to plow them for you. But anyway, that's where I'm going. And what I'm trying to figure out here, I don't want to sue the taxpayers. I really don't want to. But he keeps harassing me, and it's going to happen. I've already got an attorney, a good one, a real good one. And then, don't smile over there, because that pisses me off. And I'm coming after you. So let me tell you this. Everybody on that board is from Maple Corner. everybody, maybe one. So now, you want to shut me off? I don't mind. So anyway, Jordan, Kais, Bradley, you know, you are part of the problem. Everybody on that board, like I said, is an out-of-stater. They were out-of-staters. They come here, and they're worried about the pond. That's all they're worried about, the pond. Now they go down to the co-op, Washington Electric's co-op. They fix that road. They had no business hiring Bellavance to do it. They did it because we didn't have anybody who could do the work. We didn't have nobody. So they hired somebody. Then they're talking about Apple Hill.
Doug,
Wait a minute. What do you want to know?
I'd like to know whether there's an action or a proposal you want to make.
No, I want to know how I can sue this down without getting taxpayers.
I think you need to talk to your lawyer about
I
that.
know. But
Because I think
and
if you
that's
sue
gonna
the,
happen.
if you sue the
Don't
town
be smiling about this
and
shit,
you
'cause
win,
I'm serious.
the taxpayers will have to pay the bill.
I'm serious about this shit. And
Okay.
you ought to know how everybody got on the board. He got on the board because his wife was on the select board.
Doug, we're not going to have personal
Okay.
attacks here.
You got to know, huh?
We're not going to do personal attacks.
That's how people get on the board.
I know that not to be the case.
Huh?
I know that
You
not to be
do
the
not
case.
know that. His wife was
I
on the
damn
board.
well do, and you're now out of order.
Okay. So I've been told that how many times?
You are now out of order.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Good.
It's been
Good for
moved
you.
and seconded. We adjourn
That's
the
why I
meeting.
always say no.
All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, say nay. Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.